What did your crush do that absolutely killed your interest? Story 1. There was a girl I had a huge crush on all throughout high school but was too timid to ask out. About 4 years after graduation, she hit me up on Facebook and suggested hanging out and going to dinner. She had moved to another state and I happened to be in that state for a while for training. When we got to the restaurant, she ordered 70 wings, a pitcher of margarita, and family-sized cheese fries. I was slightly stunned but kept rolling with it to see what would happen. She then proceeded to loudly tell, in great detail, the story of when she and her girlfriends had gone down across the border to Mexico to watch a donkey show. This ended in multiple complaints to the restaurant staff by the diners within earshot, approximately half the damned restaurant, and most simply got up and walked out. Eventually, the food arrived and she proceeded to eat all the skin of her 70 wings and throw the meat out, stopping briefly to grab a handful of cheese fries or drink some of her margarita pitcher, the pitcher naturally acting as a large glass for her rather than her pouring it into glasses each time. I had since transitioned from silent amusement to silent horror, but as one tends to do, thought that putting up with the gluttonous buffoonery after a 200-mile drive would at least get me laid. 2 hours and a $200 bill later, we ended up at her place where she had planned a party with all her friends. About 6 beers in, she turned to me in panicked hysteria, letting me know she was far too drunk to complete her bartender's license exam online, but that it was due in a matter of hours or she will lose her job. You guessed it, she stayed out and partied, and I sat through the videos and took the quizzes on her work account. Bam, licensed bartender. Except not because it was her test. At least maybe now I'll end up getting laid. About the time I finished her exam, she came back into the room, gave me a big old thank you kiss, and suggested she'd like to shower before bed. She did exactly that, took a shower, got out, and passed out in my lap. I left before she could wake up and never talk to her again. Story 2. He picked me up for our first date and his car was disgusting. Not talking about a few trash items. The entire back seat and floorboard was completely covered in piled up trash, even up front. I had to step on empty McDonald's bags, old soda bottles, wrappers, etc. to even get in. And all he said was, just move it around with your feet. No sorry or anything. Made me feel like trash too. Like, dang, couldn't even clean up a little? Story 3. We were teenagers, he lived in a different province, and we used to chat and Skype. He wanted me to think he was a badass or something, and would always talk about his drug use. He ended up faking a heroin overdose when we were on chat together. I was hysterically crying and freaking out, thinking I was watching someone die and was trying to figure out how to call 911 in another province, when he snapped out of it and told me he was actually okay. I didn't talk to him much after that. Story 4. I had a huge crush on a fellow university student. I was invited over for what I expected to be a platonic study date. But hey, any time spent is better than just being alone, or so I thought. Got there and found another student from class also. Okay, study group? Turns out her mom and she set us up for a full-press MLM pitch, multi-level marketing. Video, literature, the works. I stayed a bit not to be rude, excused myself shortly, and only talked to her in class just in passing from then on. Huge letdown. MLM means multi-level marketing, aka a pyramid scheme. Signing up to both buy and sell something while recruiting others to sell also. You get a percentage of all your recruit sales also. All the percentages basically flow upward, so the only way to make any significant money is to be high in the tree, towards the top of the pyramid. It's all bullshit, basically. Story 5. Attempted to get through a horror movie together, and he kept letting the movie run and then rewinding the movie so that the horror never came. He pretended to be scared and would whine about the scare that was coming. I guess he thought this was a cute gesture and would refuse to continue. It dragged a 5-minute scene into a 45-minute production of his, "Oh no, but I'm scared. No, I don't want to. This is terrifying." This was a guy who told me that he loved horror movies. It was full of really weird contradictions, but this was the straw that broke the camel's back. The movie was an older J-horror movie called Kuchisaki Onna. I think the English title was something like The Carved-Mouthed Woman. He would rewind, then fast forward to get to the beginning of the scene, and then pause it and whine about how it was going to be scary. He would also study the paused scene and look at clues to determine what the scare was going to be. I did not comfort or hug him that time because it was maybe the second time we'd hung out together. So even though I was interested in him, it was too early to say we were dating, and I was pretty shy and kind of reserved. So no hugging would have happened even if it had all gone well. During the whole 45 minutes, I remember thinking, is he for real? Then thought that somehow maybe he was trying to tease me. He's a man of a lot of contradictions. So I played along for a while. By the time 15 minutes passed, I'm sure I was sighing audibly. I suggested that we stop and maybe watch something else. He refused. Close to the 30-minute mark, I think I snapped and said words to the effect of, "Come on, it's probably not that bad. Let's just finish. Go through it and continue the movie. Don't waste time." He laughed and kept up the one-man show of, "I'm a sensitive man and I'm not afraid to show it." I gave up and just started looking through my phone because this was such a waste of time. And finally, I think he realized he'd gone too far and let the scene play out. We did not finish the movie because he tried the same thing at the next scary part, and I made my excuses and got out of there. I did not let him know I did not want to see him again. I never told him that this was the defining moment in which I lost interest. He was also kind of controlling and had some really weird quirks that I won't bore my fellow Redditors with. Basically, we just didn't talk as much after that, and that was that. Story 6. In college, I was crazy about a girl named Megan. She was maybe 2 years younger than me, blonde, life of the party type gal. Took her to dinner and chatted up about her life. Got to talking about the past and realized she had very little experience with meaningful, loving relationships. Romantically, it seemed she was an autopilot. The more we talked, the more obvious it became that she wasn't ready to love anyone but herself. Which, good for her. Self-love and self-discovery are kind of big parts of going away to college and growing up. But I realized at that moment that what I wanted versus what she wanted were miles apart. It was a crystallizing moment, and I felt the distance between us widen and watched her shrink away. Never asked her out again, and she never asked why. Either she felt it too, or autopilot just kicked in, or she just wasn't interested. Story 7. We were in the process of getting together. She had called over and we spent an afternoon watching movies and sitting close together. By about 8 in the evening, she was considering staying later and I was casually encouraging her. She asked if she could take a shower, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course." Glad that the bathroom was clean and tidy, and I had fresh towels. Anyway, about 4 minutes later, she calls me saying she needs help with the shower, and I give her a moment to get a towel around herself and knock on the bathroom door. She opens it completely naked and shows me that she's having trouble with the shower controls. So I'm kinda unsure whether to make the move or start with the controls. So I go with the flow and show her, this is hot and cold and this is pressure. This is rainforest and this is power jets. In the 5 seconds it takes me to do this, she has sat in the toilet. Which is kind of a weird thing because I need to be able to make the next move. And she's sitting on the toilet, naked, with a lid up, looking all disinterested. I'm thinking, I've screwed it up. When suddenly, splosh, and she takes a dump right in front of me. And then another one. I was just, I'll leave you to it. Story 8. We went to Disneyland, where I had an annual pass with my friends and family for an event called Dapper Day, where you dress up in dapper clothing so everyone looks very old-timey. I had done it for years with my friends, and he wanted to come. My mom and siblings were going for the first time too. I was really excited as it was the first time he had ever met my family. Well, we went on one ride with my family and my friends, and then he said, "Do you want to go on a ride, just me and you?" I thought we'd come back and spend the rest of the day with him, but as soon as we were out of earshot, he was complaining about my family and how weird it was that they were there and he wanted to do Disney with just me. But he had known they were coming, so I was confused. Then we went on one more ride and he started complaining about how hot it was and how tired he was. And before lunch, he wanted to go home. I was super upset, but didn't want him to leave on his own, so I just went with him. But on the way home, I wished I had just let him leave and could have stayed with all the people I loved. It was the first time in years my sister and my mom had been to Disney. I didn't know it then, but it was the last time I got to go with my brothers before they grew up. And now they hate me. It was just some dude I hated, not a boyfriend or anything that lasted very long. I'm still so mad at myself for letting him ruin my day. But yeah, it absolutely killed anything I felt for him, and we broke up a few days later. Story 9. When I was a teenager, we worked together as lifeguards. I adored him so much, until one day he just started talking about this random woman that he didn't know and wasn't even there, that was wearing shorts. He said he was fine until she sat down and had some cellulite on her thighs, and he kept being angry and talking about how she should be doing squats to be more appealing. Like his rant was angry and long and no one was adding to his conversation, just silence. After that, I took my rose-colored glasses and saw that he was, in fact, a huge dude. I'm kind of grateful he showed himself that way, because I was really into him until then. Could have been a bad time for my teenage brain. Story 10. I saw a bit of a tattoo under his shirt, so naturally I asked him what it was. "It's an eagle." "Wow, that's cool." He proceeded to lift up his shirt, and it turned out that it wasn't a cool, cheesy eagle in the wind or something. It was the logo type one with its head completely turned to the side, wings sprung out on either side, a full-on Nazi symbol on his chest. I was taken aback, but decided to give him the benefit of the doubt and asked him some more political stuff. Yeah, no doubt there. He was a homophobic, foreigners-hating d***. I did not thank the friend who set us up on this blind date. Just to clarify, it wasn't a small or even medium tattoo. It took over all of his left pectorals, just ugly, thick black lines, nothing styled. If you want to celebrate your German heritage, cool, go for it. But I think there might be better ways to do it, because having such a big statement tattooed on your body is quite unambiguous right off the bat. Story 11. Number 1. He brought his untrained dog on the date without asking. I love dogs. Trained dogs that don't lick my face and respect personal space, such as my own dog and many of my friends' dogs. Number 2. He had a TV sound system subwoofer trapped to his back seat, broken and stuck on 11 or something, and wouldn't let me turn the music down. I'm convinced that one day it actually caused hearing loss. Poor dog. Number 3. He blew smoke from his joint in my face when I told him I didn't smoke because I get anxious. Number 4. Ordered food delivery for himself and told me I couldn't have any because leftovers were for his lunch tomorrow. Number 5. His car was painted with wall paint. Number 6. He yelled at me when his dog stressed me out by having explosive shit in the rug and then running over to me and attacking my legs. I didn't want to be shit on, so I said, "No," and tried to step away from the dog. He asked me why I don't know how to deal with dogs, then proceeded to smack his dog. Number 7. Drank from the moment we went into his house, even though he was meant to drive me home, but also never offered me a drink. The cab was like $35 because he lived in the f***ing rich area of town halfway up the mountain, and I lived not there. Why so many examples? It's the same damn date. I also left my umbrella at his house, and then he lied when I asked for it back. Story 12. I was watching a volleyball match with her and some of her friends. Her team was playing, but she didn't play that day. A slightly overweight girl from her team was retrieving balls going outside of the play area, and the group of girls I was watching with just absolutely dragged her through the mud. Like outright mean things they said about her. The occasional quiet shout of, "You suck," or "fatty," or whatever, just quiet enough that she wouldn't hear it. I have never seen this side of her, and I even doubt she would have been that way without the other girls. I think she just wanted to impress them and be part of their slightly older friend circle. But whatever it was inexcusable. It was probably the closest I ever got to just getting up and leaving. But I didn't want to seem rude, so I waited it out. I don't want to say I ghosted her after that day, because that would imply she put any form of effort into this and tried to message me first. I just didn't text her anymore, since she wouldn't try to start a conversation anyways. Maybe it was for the better. Story 13. On the first date, he asked me about my dad's political career and explained to me why his values were inherently bad. I didn't always see eye to eye with my dad's political learnings, but he's always been supportive of me, and it's my f***ing dad. Then he went to the bathroom and looked up my dad's voting record in his office and proceeded to explain the good and bad political moves my dad made. The second date was at his place, and he got really mad that I called him to figure out how to get into the building and interrupted a rerun of a Barcelona game. Then proceeded to make me watch 3 videos that defined his personality. The first was a stand-up skit about getting blackout drunk a lot. The second was a scene from Scandal. The third was a 40-minute video of a debate he'd been in high school. He was trying to impress me with his political prowess, I guess. But it just came off as him beating up on some poor girl who didn't know what she was talking about and didn't want to be there. It took my friends explaining to me that he sucked to take a step back and realize he wasn't for me. But that's what good friends are for. Story 14. We were sitting in class, my crush right next to me. We were also great friends. And we were teenagers, so of course, I had a lot of pimples. So she notices that I have a pimple and she wanted to pop it. I was already thinking that it was weird as fuck and I just said no. She kept begging me and eventually began telling me her methods for getting more pimples herself so she can pop them. Some of them included popping her own pimples and smearing the goo onto her cheeks and popping her friend's pimples and smearing them out all over her face. I was terrified. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the goo from a pimple, but that is disgusting as hell. I lost every form of a crush on her and we don't really talk that much either anymore. Story 15. This happened last night. My usual bubbly self has been down lately with the state of the world and my personal demons. My new man friend has not seen me sad until this week. He kept asking me what was wrong and I opened up and expressed how every morning it feels like I'm drowning in the stupidity of our shared reality, and I'm scared for my future and being destitute. I started tearing up a little because shit sucks. All the while I was holding his hand and being open, allowing myself to take in whatever comfort he was willing to share. After a brief moment of sweetness and comfort, he got up and left in a hurry, avoided my kiss goodbye and pretty much said, whatever, when I told him good night and to drive safely. Like, I upset him for being open after he asked me to be. Nothing I was upset about had anything to do with him or a new relationship. This man is 37 years old. I'm 32. It made me feel manipulated somehow, like he wanted me to be upset about him or something. All I know is that I can't get wet for a grown man who acts like a child whenever real emotions and concerns are on the table. If I have to survive the apocalypse single, then so be it. Texted me twice since he left in a hurry. Both texts were full of heart emojis and nothing explaining his abrupt departure or attitude change. Feeling really weird about it. Story 16. Had this guy that used to come into my work when I was a college student, around 21. It was a retail cashier job and I was working till I went back to school. It was really cute and seemed nice and came down my checkout lane whenever he was there. This guy asked for my number and we set up a date to go to a movie. He told me, my family couldn't believe I was going out with the cashier. They were making fun of me before I left. And I was like, okay, f***er, that's cool. Any interest was right then and there. Then he tried to make out with me for a solid 5 minutes. It was to see Inception. We were mid-row and the theater was packed. I excused myself to go to the bathroom, brought my purse, and drove home, and blocked his number in the parking lot before I took off. Story 17. Both of us were 19 and a year out of high school, 87, and hadn't seen each other since. Ran into her downtown. We got to chatting, and I asked her if she wanted to grab some lunch. We were both being extremely flirty, and obviously we were both interested. Went to a little sandwich shop about a block away. When the waiter was bringing our food, she kept making gay comments, and doing it loud enough to make sure the waiter heard her. I was freaking stunned. I could see it was really getting to the dude. After he walked away, visibly upset, I got up and went to the bathroom. Found the guy and apologized. Gave him double the check, apologized again, and left without speaking to her. I moved to California less than a year later and I never saw her again. And the time it takes to say, I hope he didn't get AIDS in my soup, she went from the cutest girl I knew to a troll I could barely look at. Story 18. It was my first year of university and there was a guy in my dorm that was just totally doing it for me, looks-wise. We never spoke, but I'd seen him going to and from classes, the cafeteria, etc. One day we were both in the cafeteria and I was trying to get up the courage to go talk to him, when he suddenly stopped with a distant look in his eyes. He opened his mouth and proceeded to shove what seemed like his entire hand in there, picking furiously at a morsel stuck in this molar or something. Eventually he finished, wiped his hand once in his pants, and started to touch what seemed like every goddamn surface in the cafeteria. I left and ate ramen in my room alone instead. The next day I saw him with a pair of wooden drumsticks in his back pocket, and I knew it was not meant to be. Story 19. It started small, with mildly annoying things like his sense of humor and culture being halted in 2012. Then he became obsessive, followed me around work the entire day, and put off his own responsibilities. He started throwing in casual sexism, even racism. But my black friends... He'd always turn it on me, a mixed dude, by saying, so you're just gonna ignore what all my black friends say about X not being racist? All my black friends say microaggression isn't real. All my black friends say blah blah. Whenever I told him that that was really not the way to go about this, or speaking for all of your black friends isn't really appropriate, then I was just unable to admit when I'm wrong. He so quickly went from someone kinda cute to the most annoying, ugly-sided guy I've ever gotten close to. What screams, I have a crush on you? Story 1. When the girl turns her head to you, sees you looking at her butt and gives you the fuck me eyes. Story 2. If they laugh at everything you say, there's a good chance they're crushing on you. Me. My mom died yesterday. I don't want to live anymore. Her. Dies of laughter. Story 3. Boy. How are you? Girl. I'm good. How are you? Boy. I'm good. How are you? Story 4. Being in college and getting up at 7 a.m. to have breakfast with her when you have no classes at all that day. Story 5. You can tell a girl likes you by the position of her ankles. If they're behind her ears, she likes you. Story 6. Penetration. Story 7. Kicking dirt at you on the playground then running away. Story 8. Oh wow. Grab some popcorn. This is going to be a long one. From Dave Barry's Guide to Guys. Let's say a guy named Roger is attracted to a woman named Elaine. He asks her out to a movie, she accepts, they have a pretty good time. A few nights later, he asks her out to dinner, and again, they enjoy themselves. They continue to see each other regularly, and after a while, neither of them is seeing anybody else. And then one evening, when they're driving home, a thought occurs to Elaine, and without really thinking, she says it out loud. Do you realize that as of tonight, we've been seeing each other for exactly 6 months? And then there's silence in the car. To Elaine, it seems like a very loud silence. She thinks to herself, geez, I wonder if it bothers him that I said that. Maybe he's feeling confined by our relationship. Maybe he thinks I'm trying to push him into some kind of obligation that he doesn't want or isn't sure of. And Roger is thinking, gosh, 6 months. And Elaine is thinking, but hey, I'm not so sure if I want this kind of relationship either. Sometimes I wish I had a little more space, so I'd have time to think about whether I really want us to keep going the way we are, moving steadily toward, where are we going? Are we just going to keep seeing each other at this level of intimacy? Are we heading toward marriage, toward children, toward a lifetime together? Am I ready for that level of commitment? Do I really even know this person? And Roger is thinking, so that means it was, February when we started going out, which was right after I had the car at the dealer's, which means, let me check the odometer. Whoa, I am way overdue for an oil change here.
And Elaine is thinking, he's upset. I can see it on his face. Maybe I'm reading this completely wrong. Maybe he wants more from our relationship, more intimacy, more commitment. Maybe he has sensed, even before I sensed it, that I was feeling some reservations. Yes, I bet that's it. That's why he's so reluctant to say anything about his own feelings. He's afraid of being rejected. And Roger is thinking, I'm going to have them look at the transmission again. I don't care what those morons say, it's still not shifting right. They better not try to blame it on the cold weather this time. What cold weather? It's 87 degrees out. This thing is shifting like a garbage truck, and I paid those incompetent thieving crayons $600. And Elaine is thinking, he's angry. And I don't blame him. I'd be angry too. I feel so guilty putting him through this, but I can't help the way I feel. I'm just not sure. And Roger's thinking, they'll probably say it's only a 90-day warranty. That's exactly what they're going to say. The scumballs. And Elaine is thinking, maybe I'm just too idealistic, waiting for a knight to come riding up on his white horse when I'm sitting right next to a perfectly good person. A person I enjoy being with. A person I truly do care about. A person who seems to truly care about me. A person who's in pain because of my self-centered schoolgirl romantic fantasy. And Roger's thinking, warranty? They want a warranty? I'll give them a warranty. We'll take their warranty and stick it. Roger, Elaine says aloud. What? Says Roger, startled. Please don't torture yourself like this, she says, her eyes beginning to brim with tears. Maybe I should never have. Oh, I feel so. She breaks down, sobbing. What? Says Roger. I'm such a fool, Elaine sobs. I mean, I know there's no knight. I really know that. It's silly. There's no knight and there's no horse. There's no horse? You think I'm a fool, don't you? Elaine says. No, says Roger, glad to finally know the correct answer. It's just that, I need some time, Elaine says. There was a 15-second pause while Roger, thinking as fast as he can, tries to come up with a safe response. Finally, he comes up with one that he thinks might work. Yes, he says. Elaine, deeply moved, touches his hand. Oh, Roger, do you really feel that way? She says. What way? Says Roger. That way about time, says Elaine. Oh, says Roger. Yes. Elaine turns to face him and gazes deeply into his eyes, causing him to become very nervous about what she might say next, especially if it involves a horse. At last, she speaks. Thank you, Roger, she says. Thank you, says Roger. Then he takes her home, and she lies on her bed, a conflicted, tortured soul, and weeps until dawn. Whereas when Roger gets back to his place, he opens a bag of Doritos, turns on the TV, and immediately becomes deeply involved in a rerun of a tennis match between two Czechoslovakians he never heard of. A tiny voice in the far recesses of his mind tells him that something major was going on back there in the car, but he's pretty sure there's no way he would ever understand what, so he figures it's better if he doesn't think about it. This is also Roger's policy regarding world hunger. The next day, Elaine will call her closest friend, or perhaps two of them. They will talk about the situation for 6 straight hours in painstaking detail. They will analyze everything she said and everything he said, going over it time and time again, exploring every word, expression, and gesture for nuances of meaning, considering every possible ramification. They will continue to discuss this subject, off and on, for weeks, maybe months, never reaching any definite conclusions, but never getting bored with it either. Meanwhile, Roger, while playing racquetball one day with a mutual friend of his and Elaine's, will pause just before serving, frown, and say, Norm, did Elaine ever own a horse? Story 9. Considering the post from a few days ago that showed that obvious signals are indeed not obvious, I'm gonna say unless they upfront tell you, you won't know. Story 10. All of a sudden, they start to want to hang out with you more and subtly touch you more than before, i.e. hand on knee, elbow jab, poking, etc. Comparing hand sizes is such an easy yet overlooked method of subtle touching, but it really only works once unless there's a staggering difference in size. You also tend to brag or talk more than you would have done before in an attempt to gain their attention and whatnot, or when you make random eye contact from across the room and they look away as if it was a crime to stare, only to look at you again later. Another small but true tidbit is that the one holding the crush will smile that smile. You know, that means that they're in love. I mean, who wouldn't smile when they're around their crush? It's almost impossible, other than when you're blushing like crazy and speechless as a fish. For whatever ungodly reason, I always try to be near them no matter how out of place it may be. I always try to be strategical with this and be talking with a friend or having a reason to be where I am. Logic got thrown out the window the one day he decided to sit at my lunch table, but more so to sit with our mutual friend than me. At least he knew my name. It's hard to hold a conversation during lunch when everyone's trying to jam a sandwich down their throat so that they can move on to cram for quizzes and exams last minute.
And we interrupt this program to tell you that thanks for watching. And if you like our content, please subscribe to our channel and click on that notification bell so you get updated whenever we upload. Story 11. Saying things that make you wonder, why did I say that? As you're falling asleep. My crush used to do this fun thing in theater where she would act offended if I said something slightly offensive, making me scared I offended her. She knew I had a crush on her, I think. I then told her, trying to compliment her, "You're really good at, that pretending thing you do, you know? Acting? Yeah, acting. I'm an aspiring actor, by the way. I forgot the word acting in front of my crush." Story 12. I'm reading through this entire thread and hoping nobody noticed me doing this stuff with a girl I like. Story 13. I knew I had a crush on my significant other when I started to prioritize his text messages over others. We met online. I'm a lazy texter normally, 2 to 3 business days for a reply, but the minute I saw his name pop up, I'd get giddy and have to reply. Luckily for me, he also had a crush on me, and we are now expecting a son in June. Story 14. This one girl liked arguing with me, and then she said, "You owe me a beer." And we went to a bar and she proceeded to show me no affection, so I was a bit surprised when she invited me back to her place. People are weird. Story 15. There was a girl who worked at a cafe who had a crush on me. Sometimes when I would start heading out, she would say, "Aw, come on, stay a little while longer. I'll buy you some nachos." That's pretty damn hard to turn down. So she'd buy some nachos, an employee discount, and make a bad plate of nachos, and then we'd sit and share it. Yeah, that's crush territory. Story 16. I feel like a pretty good tell that I've mainly noticed in myself is when someone acts the opposite social style they usually are around a specific individual. For me, I'm very shy and introverted and have social anxiety. However, if I have a crush on someone, I all of a sudden am able to start and carry on conversations. Not always gracefully though, and try to talk a little louder and confidently. I laugh and smile more, whereas with other people, I usually come off a little monotone and emotionless. I get more playful with a crush and so on and so forth. I've had very loud, extroverted, boisterous friends who, upon getting a crush on someone, become the total opposite around the crush. They get meek and timid and shy and overly conscious of what they're saying and how they're saying it. It's really interesting. Story 17. When I was 23, there was this 12 to 13-year-old boy who always sat next to me on the bus on my way to work and his way to school. I didn't mind chatting to him because he was a nice kid, but I did suspect he had a bit of a crush on me because why else would he choose to sit and talk to an adult woman instead of sitting with kids his own age? He always carried a tuba case with him, so it was slightly awkward for him to sit next to me. I have to admit there was something a bit flattering about a kid asking me all these questions about my life and looking up to me like I was the most interesting person in the world. One day, my boyfriend was riding with me to the city. We were holding hands and laughing, quite obviously together. The kid got on, lugging his tuba case, and he saw the two of us and stopped dead in his tracks. He looked so crushed, and he never sat next to me or talked to me again. The look on his face, it really made me feel awful for him. I guess he had to get let down the hard way. Story 18. Constantly smiling at you when you're around. It's important to them to remember details about things in your life. They bring things up in convo, start conversations first via texting, touching their hair, slightly touching your arm when they laugh at something you said. They're engaged when you're speaking with eye contact and don't look away, mimicking what you do, how you sit, your mannerisms, etc. Their feet pointed towards you. Also good if you want to know it's time to wrap up a convo in a one-on-one setting. Story 19. Picturing life together after just interacting. I met a girl at boxing yesterday. She was new, so I offered to train with her. She seemed genuinely interested in my teaching. We both laughed a lot and had fun. I stayed after to get to know her. She signed up for more lessons. We went outside and spent more time talking. She even gave me a compliment on my physique, and I think we indirectly made plans to train together again. Help. I'm 23 and the last crush I had was when I was 14. God damn it. Story 20. When I was a teenager, there was a guy in my friends group who every girl had a crush on at some point in their life. He was obsessed with the color yellow and wore yellow constantly. You could tell who had developed a crush on him when that person started wearing yellow a lot all in a sudden. That never worked though. He only ever dated one person while we were teenagers. They were together for almost 3 years and she never did the yellow thing. Story 21. Is anyone else reading all these and planning to use them to A. Figure out if you have a crush on anyone? B. Avoid displaying any of them so no one thinks you have any subconscious bias, or C. Deliberately use all of them on one person to freak them out as much as possible. Story 22. You wake up in the night to use the bathroom and they're standing outside your door. Sounds more like a murder in progress. Story 23. If they're really open to talking to you, that's a good sign. Like 4 points. 1. When I like a girl, I will repeatedly try to start up conversations. 2. When a girl likes me, she'll always be extremely receptive to those attempts and conversations will billow very easily. 3. When a girl does not like me, she might answer my questions and be friendly with minimal eye contact. 4. When I do not like a girl who might like me, I won't be so inclined to perpetuate a conversation because I know she might misconstrue that. Story 24. There was a girl at work that I would always talk to about stuff. One day I came up to her and she had drawn me a really intricate drawing and put my name on it, laminated it in packing tape and gave it to me. I had a huge crush on her, but thought she was out of my league and we were just friends even though we went on one date together after she had turned down another guy at work. I want to believe that she actually really liked me, but I still tell myself I'm reading too much into it and I'm an idiot. Can anyone tell me which is the case? Story 25. When they go absurd lengths to deny it. Girl that lives on my street has a huge crush on me. She's gone to huge lengths to deny it, such as by threatening me with a restraining order, asked members of her family to tell me she's not interested, blocked me on all social media and changed her number. Okay, sure, I believe you. You definitely don't have a crush on me. Story 26. I waited for this girl's train who was my crush for an entire university year to try and get her interested in me. Even watched as multiple trains that I can take home left just so I could be on her platform. It took 3 months to get to talking, 6 months to getting each other's socials, 10 months to be friends who sat at university, then 12 months to talk till midnight and later each night. Nothing. So I stopped seeing and talking to her. 1 week later, she calls me up and wants to hang out. I said I had a party and she begged me to let her be my +1. We went, hooked up after a few, and she stayed over. She's been my girlfriend for 2 years now, and we're about to move in together. I don't know what the moral of the story is, but I guess trying hard gets you nowhere. Or you don't know what you got till it's gone. Story 27. Not gonna lie, I'm really bad at picking up on hints like these. In high school, a girl told me she wasn't wearing any underwear while we were alone, and I made a comment how it must be breezy in the dress she was wearing. Story 28. If A has a crush on B, A begins to take more notice of B in various interactions and show more interest in B whether or not B is nearby. A is suddenly more interested in spending more time with B. A will find ways to quote-unquote run into B at various times of the day or week. A is noticeably happier and more social in B's presence. A is noticeably more nervous and awkward in B's presence. A is in a state of desperately wanting to interact with B but simultaneously fearing rejection and feeling insecure or self-conscious. Other people also notice such behavior changes for A when in B's presence. Other people or B begin to feel awkward or uncomfortable as the situation becomes increasingly obvious. Other people, B or both, eventually try to communicate to A that it's not going to happen. A is too oblivious or too willing to cling to hope to comprehend this. A finally understands and is heartbroken, but understands that it will not work out. A is embarrassed and is deeply upset that A had hurt someone they care about so much, aka B, by making B uncomfortable. A wants to move on but is incapable. A enters a depressive spiral that lasts for several years, possibly with no end in sight. A gradually improves over time but is still in pain and longs for an impossible future or a changeable past. A is happy to see B move on with their life and grow to become happy and successful, despite A being incapable of this. Results may vary at this point. I have some issues to work out. Avoid similar situations at all cost. No matter the temptation, it will destroy you. Story 29. I was thrown a curveball. A girl I know out of the blue started talking to me more, sending me funny things, etc. When we hung out, she would put pics of me on her Snapchat. She started to take an interest in motorcycles, my passion, even though she had never been interested before. She also began to do this trust fall type of thing, where she'd routinely fall all over me. She would wrestle me and constantly poke me too. I thought, okay, this girl totally has a crush on me. When I broached this subject, she acted slightly offended and denied ever liking me. I felt like a massive idiot. See why guys suck at making moves sometimes? Because a girl like that will just leave us forever questioning our judgment. Story 30. Always catching them staring at you is probably the best universal sign. Story 31. When I kidnap you and hold you captive in my basement. I hate when that happens. Story 32. No normal behavior should be taken as absolute evidence of a crush. That's how people get in trouble or make trouble for themselves. People are both incredibly complex and can also be really dumb about how they present themselves. Ask yourself how many times you intended to put out some message or social cue, and it was either completely ignored or you later realized the other person probably misinterpreted it, or you could have expressed it better, and assume you're going to be on the receiving end of that. And no, someone showing interest in you as a person doesn't mean they want to ride your wiener or lady wiener. Some people are just sociable. It's easy to forget that, as many of us are a bunch of weird internet social idiots. Story 33. Staring, licking lips, while at the same time slowly moving their index finger in an anti-clockwise direction around their left nip. Only on the left, and only ever anti-clockwise. The other direction opens the door to the basement, the rear door. It can be messy down there. What did I just read? Story 34.
Don't know if she had a crush on me or not. Maybe someone out there is a better judge than I am. I work in retail at a restaurant and bakery, and a good number of attractive girls eat and shop there regularly. On Tuesday, a group of 4 or 5 young women walked up to my register and ordered some food. They ordered separately but sat at the same table, so I had to take their orders individually. The second one to order was really pretty, and I asked her how she was doing, what she would like for lunch, etc. Don't make a huge deal out of this, that's just my normal routine. She says she's doing well and would like one of our sandwiches. All of our sandwiches come with either chips, a quinoa salad, or a side salad, up to the person ordering. So I asked her which one she wanted. She smiled at me and asked, "What's a quinoa salad?" I spent about 20 seconds explaining what it was, and she just kept looking at me and smiling. Then asked, "Now, what were the other choices again?" I told her chips or side salad, and she started to ask, "Now, what's in the side salad?" "Oh, duh. I love the chips here. I'll just get those." We both laughed as I ran the transaction, and I told her I hoped she would enjoy her meal and have a great rest of her day. She smiled again and was like, "Thank you, you too." And then as she walked away towards her table, she glanced back at me and grinned again. Well then, only a matter of time until you get married.
What is the dumbest thing you've ever done in order to be near someone you had a crush on? Okay, here's a fun one. When I was a freshman in college, I was planning to head up to a friend in another college a few hours away to visit for a day. Let's call him Steve for the story. Then I found out there was going to be a dorm party in my school that same Saturday, and that my crush would be there. Let's call her Mary. I was pretty socially awkward and didn't get invited to many of these affairs, so I decided I would cancel my trip and go to the party so I could be near her. Then the day before the party, or my canceled trip, Mary goes, "Hey, I heard you're going out of town tomorrow. Can I hitch a ride? I want to go visit a friend up at the same school." Now, suddenly, I need to scramble to uncancel with Steve at this other school. Problem is, I can't get a hold of him. Cell phones were just starting to become mandatory. Steve didn't have one yet. Okay, so now I'm driving my crush to another school where I claim I plan to meet a friend who I've actually canceled on. When I get up there, I still can't get a hold of Steve. So my crush and her friend, who we should just call John, invite me to hang out. I never get in contact with Steve despite calling frantically several times throughout the night. Why did I want to leave Mary and John? Because the friend she was visiting was actually some dude she was trying to bang. So in the end, with nowhere else to go, I was planning to sleep in my car and just lie about it so that I could get the hell out of this increasingly awkward situation. But failed. They invited me to stay on the couch where I stupidly spent the night clearly able to hear them having intimacy. In the end, I learned many, many valuable life lessons that weekend. Also too, I probably didn't learn some that I should have, but whatever. It was a while ago now. The irony, if he had told her that he canceled his trip, she might not have had a ride to meet her dude. Would have gone to the party with him and y'all would have ended up together. Best case scenario. Story 2. It was 11th grade and this beautifully alien-looking boy named Hank was in one of my classes. He actually looked like Spock, with eyebrows pointing up towards his scalp. I think I was mostly attracted to his muscles and a simple masculine name. Being in 11th grade and never having done anything remotely athletic throughout the course of my high school career, I decided to join the track team. Hank just happened to be on the team and was rather obsessed with hurdles. So obsessed, in fact, that the only thing he would talk about when I nervously engaged in conversation with him was his love for hurdles. So interesting. I did not care, for his abs and Vulcan facade made me turned on. Joining the track team sure got me a lot of time with Hank. Viewing him from afar was enough. Since he was so dim-witted I didn't actually want to date him. That would have been embarrassing, because everyone knew how Hank was not the sharpest tool in the haystack. Whatever. Also, the fact that he was younger than me didn't help. My friends would never have let it go. I'm possibly the least athletic person I've ever met in my life. Joining the track team was like a snail trying to join a pack of cheetahs. A snail whose ankles swell up from the simple act of lightly jogging. And choosing hurdles was like a snail trying to join a pack of hurdling cheetahs. Not good. One fateful day when both of my parents happened to be out of town, the inevitable happened. I was failing on hurdles, as per usual. Hank did not notice, for he was too intent in practicing his hurdling form. My foot got caught in the last hurdle, and to my horror, I found myself falling. I heard a small fracture, and immense pain went through my body. A stream of foul words poured out of my mouth as I clutched my aching arm. Hank looked on, jaw slack with his usual dimness. Everyone said my arm was not broken, but I knew better. I had to have a neighbor take me to the doctor to get an x-ray. It was broken, all because of my infatuation with a hurdler named Hank. Story 3. I purposefully was late to science class every day for almost a year for the opportunity to wave at the guy I liked.
I didn't even know his name, just called him Random Wave Guy, RWG, because he waved at me once for no particular reason, and that was the extent of our socialization. I also spent around 15 minutes each morning making excuses so I could be by the doorway when he walked past his classroom, so I could get a half-second glimpse. Also, when I found out he was the younger brother of one of my bros, I gasped from the wrong sensation and the fact that every time my friend had been talking about his younger sibling, it had been him. Later, they moved into a house in the same street I lived on, and the guy started riding my bus. Turns out he was really funny, not just insanely attractive. However, a lot of the kids in the bus had this intense loathing of him for the perceived notion that he was not straight. He made a lot of self-disapproving non-straight jokes. Though it was perfectly straight, I basically made myself the enemy of the entire bus by sticking up for him. Me and my best friend were the only people he could sit by. Long story short, I did a lot for him and made it very clear I liked him and accepted every invitation from his older brother to his house to be closer to him. Talked to him a lot, but he ended up going out with my best friend who said she didn't like him but apparently did. What kind of best friend does this? Story 4. When my high school English teacher was young and adventurous, he dropped out of college and moved from Connecticut to California to chase after a dame. When it didn't work out, he and his roommate naturally decided to spend most of their remaining money in a pair of monkeys. I kid you not, to walk around town with. The monkeys turned out not to be the friendliest of creatures and settled mainly in the windowsill above the balcony in their apartment. So he ended up living with a couple of occasionally troublesome monkeys for a few months. It wasn't too bad at first, but their mess became a bit of a problem. At one point, his roommate's parents decided to visit, and luckily enough, the pesky primates were taking an afternoon nap. They almost got away with hiding the situation entirely. They blamed the smell on the sewage leak, I believe, but one of the monkeys stirred from its slumber and made its presence known with an empathic tantrum directed at what it believed were intruders. So he and his roommate were forced to get their mess together and move out. But first, they had to clean out all the feces from the living quarters. They tried the old wash it out with water method with the help of 2 garden hoses, but only to minimal success. Eventually, the burden on the kitchen floor of their second-floor apartment became too great, and a sizable place turned into a gaping fissure through which an unholy slosh of water and mess poured into the room directly below. At that point, the landlord saw the extent of how much they'd done goofed, and told them to scram after handing them a generously low bill for the repairs. He ended up getting a degree from NYU and retiring this year. He always has the most interesting stories to tell. Story 5. Oh God. This thread brought back a lot of repressed memories. Okay, high school, freshman year. There's this girl I really like called Emily. She just moved here from Nevada, and she's really shy. We start hanging out a lot and flirting towards the end of the year. One day in June after school, we're just hanging out on one of the benches near the basketball courts. A few people I know are playing basketball, and for some reason I do not know to this day, I decided that I might impress her with my basketball skills. That's right. I legitimately thought that she'd instantly fall for me as soon as she saw how good I was at basketball. An extremely stupid decision on my part, mainly because I sucked at basketball, and most of these other people were on the basketball team and were much better than me. Brushing aside all risk, I boldly walk up to the court and join in the game. Immediately, I realized that I'm probably going to make a complete laughingstock and be ridiculed. I'm also new to the school, and one of the other guys, Nathan, was rather competitive. To my surprise, I actually do quite well, and most of the ridicule is directed to another kid by the name of Jake. Jake is also a freshman, and he's been pestered for most of the beginning of the year, especially by Nathan and company. He'd recently started hanging around us again, being slightly more popular now than he was at the beginning of the year. During the game, Jake was the target of the occasional joke or insult from Nathan. Usually he'd just chuckle and mumble a couple of words. About half an hour later, Jake misses a couple shots and Nathan starts taunting him. "What's wrong, Jake? You seem kinda out of it today. Did your girlfriend break up with you or something?" Oh, wait. This time, however, Jake just looked up and stared at him for a good 10 seconds. Then, out of nowhere, he pulls out a sharp object from his jacket pocket and starts yelling incomprehensible stuff. Nathan and everyone else are shouting at him to put the sharp object away. Emily's screaming, etc. Eventually, the police are called and Jake is taken away, but they release him the next day. I didn't see much of those people again. I ended up dating Emily for a couple months before realizing she was just really immature. I didn't see Nathan again. I didn't see Jake either. From what I heard, his parents got scared after the incident and sent him to live with some distant relatives in a suburb of Los Angeles. It's like the Fresh Prince intro, except in the wrong state and the one making trouble in the neighborhood gets sent away. Story 6. This will probably get buried, but what the hell. I went in front of a whole church and sang in a trio with a girl I liked. Oh God, why? I swear I was in love with this girl. I still might be 3 years later. 3 things. I have the most awkward voice ever. I know everyone is self-conscious about their voice, but even other people tell me it sounds funny and awkward. My whole being is awkward. My posture, my lanky height, everything. I can only imagine how I look in front of a whole church. I've been a regular to church before, but where I went, it was small. Her church was the big bacon of churches. Lots of people were at the service that day, including people I knew from school. But I thought it would be all worth it. So we practiced for about 2 hours before the service. God knows why that long. Right before the service, she started to talk about hoping to go to prom. Whoa, mama, was the only thing going through my naive mind.
She could only be hinting to me. Why else would she be bringing this up now? She knew I was in love with her. Then she starts talking about how she hopes a senior boy named Sam, not my name, asks her. I spent 2 hours practicing a stupid song when I'm not even close to being an adequate singer, and how I have to make a fool of myself in front of a crowd filled with people I go to school with. I finished the song with style, waited an hour for the service to finish while sitting next to her, and got myself out of there. Never again. Story 7. This will get buried, but oh well. In college, I had a crush on a woman in my program. We worked in the same group for one of our courses and were in the same program. And as the semester rolled on, she started saying things like, I'm taking this course, you should take it too. Massaging my shoulders, lots of touchy-feely behavior in class, the whole 9 yards. My friends were yelling at me that she had a crush on me too. I was a wicked socially awkward penguin back then. I was too scared to do anything about it. Winter break comes and the next semester comes. I signed up for a few classes we would share, mostly because, well, I had a crush on her. But given the program, there was a huge probability we'd be together. The month comes and she seems distant. I decide, well, might as well do something awesome for Valentine's Day. My friends and a few close fellow classmates were all for my idea. I bought a small bouquet of flowers, a card, and wrote a nice and quick poem. I had a few people read it prior to giving it to her and got the thumbs up. God knows I didn't want to be creepy. Oh, looking back on it now. The first class comes, and during break, I place everything at her seat while she's away. My classmates waited in bated breath. I waited nervously. Hands sweating, pulse quickening. She reads the card, reads the poem, and puts it all away. I hang my head in disgrace. My classmates could feel my shame. Even my professors felt sorry for me. Our next class comes. She says nothing. Where she normally talks to me, she says nothing to me. My friends who were also in the previous class were at this point trying to pump up my confidence. I barely concentrated in class. I stared at the time, just wanting the day to end. I end up going home feeling ashamed and disgraced. I feel the lowest of the low. When I got home, there was an email sitting in my inbox from her. She had my number and not email. Kind of weird. She agreed to a date. Woot. Felt awesome. We planned for it in a few days. Things go on as normal. The day of the date comes, and as soon as I'm about to leave for class, I get a text. I've got some stuff with my family. Can we push it to tomorrow? I say sure. No biggie. Next day comes, I get another text. I forgot I have something planned. Can we push it to next week? I look at it weirdly, but say okay. Yeah. A week later, she tried to postpone that date too. Come to find out, she ended up not wanting to go out, but didn't want to hurt me. Had I asked her out the previous semester, she would have said yes and we would have gone out. Story 8. I spied a cute guy in the back of my political science class who was always by himself. I decided to semi-stalk him and see if I couldn't get to know him better. Turns out he wore a couple of World of Warcraft shirts, so I thought to myself, well, I play that fairly often. Maybe if I get some, he'll notice me. Yes, you read that right. I bought World of Warcraft t-shirts just for that purpose. So lo and behold, that Friday he noticed me outside the testing center when I was wearing my Hellscream War Chief shirt and decided to talk to me after school the following Monday. We ended up getting sunburned by talking too long in the parking lot, and I did get to jump him pretty soon, and still do get to jump him as often as I want. Story 9. This really isn't dumb, but when I was a teenager, I was selling bottled water at my family Sanda gym in northern China. It was summer vacay, so I'd always be there at 5 or 6 a.m. every day. That's when all the Sanda people came to do their morning run with the local army station there. Anyways, there was a new guy that came about a week before. I caught a glimpse of him a few times and thought he was pretty cute. Their gym is upstairs from where I sell bottled water. I taught aerobic dancing to older ladies then. One morning he showed up for the morning run. Now it's a really tough run. They literally run all the way around the perimeter of the city. It's over 20 kilometers. Most of the kids just walk most of it if they come, and only their captain makes it till the end.
So I'm out in front of the gym, stretching at 6, and I hear the army soldiers yelling their marching chant and jogging past. Following behind them, I see the captain. And who do I see jogging alongside? You guy. His face was completely red like a tomato, and I just said, "Oh, you're really good." He replies, "Yeah, thanks," and walks inside. Anyways, it turns out his family lives in Canada and he's back for the summer visiting his grandparents. In his off time, he plays with other people in the gym, so I pretended to like to go and ask them questions when they play. He never really paid much attention to me. Then, one day, about a week later, he comes downstairs after the training session and buys all the water I have, goes back upstairs and comes back down all cleaned up. Then he hands me a book on how to play a Go. It was just too sweet. Anyways, we go for ice cream later and talk. It turns out he was leaving in a week to Canada. I felt really sad because I really liked this boy. We walked about and it was drizzling a little bit. This was at 9 p.m., so it was pretty dark. My mom wants to know where I am, so I tell her I'm coming home. He hears it and offers to walk me back. He grabs a Hello Kitty umbrella from a street vendor and we walk. The umbrella is honestly tiny, so he held it over my head. It was so sweet. So I grab onto his arm and pull close to him and walk. The end result? We were both soaked when it was close to my house. Anyways, I gave him my first kiss. A week later, he was gone. On the day he left, I was sitting at my desk selling bottled water before the aerobic ladies came, feeling really dejected. He walks in through the door with a big bag full of gifts he got for me. He gave me a hug and kiss, whispered in my ear and left as soon as he came. I look out from a second floor window and see his cab was waiting with his mom inside. She didn't know about the impromptu stop. I guess this will always be a secret. That was the last time I saw him. I regret nothing. Story 10. I had to create a throwaway for this one. I'd been texting my crush and we had talked about meeting up at a party that night. Felt like the greatest thing in my life. When my phone turned off, I started using my friend's phone. She had his number in her contacts, and he stopped responding. I caught a glimpse of him when my friends and I were walking from a party later that night. I waved enthusiastically and he waved as he was walking into a house party. I then had the bright idea of following him into the house and asking him if he wanted to come to another party with me. He was hanging out with a few friends, 2 of them female, to my jealousy at the time. I was obviously feeling awkward about the situation. I recognized his reluctance and immediately dashed off without saying anything, too embarrassed. Oh, and did I mention that I'd hung out with him the night before and took 2 straight doubles of Sailor Jerry to catch up with him? Only to throw it up as he rushed me to his dorm hall's bathroom. Good times. Story 11. This is the craziest thing I ever did. I was absolutely in love with my high school sweetheart. And in grade 11, our last summer together before she moved across the country, I had signed up as a tour guide for canoe trips to young kids up north. 6 hours away, and I only got 1 week off the whole summer. I went up for training and immediately regretted it. The kids were annoying rich brats, and I couldn't bear to be away from my then girlfriend, knowing this was our last summer together. There was no way I could get out of this job as I had made a commitment. So after the training, I had a few days back home before I was gone for the whole summer. I took my bike out and rode to a small hospital and called my dad, saying I had a bike accident and was at the hospital. Could he please pick me up? I faked pain and got the nurse to wrap my wrist up. My dad wanted proof that it was in fact broken and not sprained. "We need to take you in to get an x-ray," he says. I said let's go to the hospital tomorrow and see how it feels in the morning. It might just be a sprain. I proceeded to go downstairs to my gym and drop a bench press bar loaded with weights on my wrist. Now I'm in excruciating pain but slept through it. Went to the hospital the next morning and the x-rays came back broken. Got out of the summer job, had a great summer with a girlfriend, and then she cheated on me. Story 12. I guess you could say my whole friendship with her was a string of me doing stupid stuff just so I could be near her. For about 2 years, I walked her home, even though I lived on the other side of town, and I complimented her constantly. I asked her out to a grade 9 grad. She turned me down even though she had told me she liked me. A few years later, she told me that she had lied to me about that because she just liked the attention I gave her. Similar to the OP, in grade 11, I started going to church. She's very religious, even though I considered myself to be atheist. I convinced myself that religion was for me. For a couple of months, kept on going to church and reading the Bible. Even went to youth conferences and such. Then she met another guy and they started dating. Seems like my faith left pretty quick after that. To all of you who say I kept myself in the friend zone because I didn't say anything, I told her how I felt several times and I was turned down plenty of times. Throughout all of this, we remained really close friends. And to me, she was my closest friend I've ever had. So I recently asked her to stop talking about her new boyfriend, and it seems like that was too much for her because she gave up on her friendship. And now I even lost her friendship. I've done a lot of crazy things for her for the past 4 years. Turns out 4 years of treating her like a princess isn't enough for her. So now I lost the girl I love the most. Sorry for moping, Reddit. Just needed to share that. Okay. Anyways, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 13. A guy I had a major thing for found out I wasn't allergic to when I thought I was for years, and immediately declared that he will, indeed, be the first person to get me stuffed. Now, I wasn't straight edge by any means, but I also didn't find the idea of mind-altering substances too exciting. However, the dream of the last few months had just told me he was going to lower both of our inhibitions while in the same room. I gave the spoken English equivalent of a and followed him into his dorm room. The next 2 months were a bit of a haze. I had finished my temp night job and was between semesters in my school, so free time was aplenty, and free time was his. At first, he'd just show me strain after strain, laughing as I coughed and wheezed my lungs out. I'd end up in his room immediately after he woke up, and leave only when he was going to bed. We'd spend stupid amounts of time making characters in whatever Soul Calibur was the latest at the time, order pasta bread bowls from Domino's just about every day, and I swear he noticed just how much I'd end up staring at him. Flash forward to New Year's Eve. I brought along to a party with a crush, his dealer's girlfriend, and a group of people I'd never seen before. I ended up befriending a girl in a wheelchair. She was so nice and everyone was ignoring her, while the guy I was crazy for sat a cute little Asian girl on his lap. Frick me, right? Eventually, push came to shove. I got really close to sealing at least a partial deal with the guy, and then he threw me at his other best non-straight friend, who I ended up sleeping with or pseudo-dating or God knows what in the continued induced haze. At some point, I realized what really happened. In the middle of it with a second guy, to be completely honest, and ended the situation as swiftly as I could. I'm still friends with the guy who smoked me out for a period of time, and he still flirts with me because he knows what it does to me. I think he has a girlfriend now, though. I'm not too sure. Story 14. Probably will get buried, and definitely not as bad as some of these. In freshman year of high school, my family had just moved to a new city. Therefore, new school. I saw this girl who sat next to me in bio, and my first thoughts were literally, she's hot, I'm going to date her one day. Well, we talked every now and then, but then we got new seats. She was one of the only people I talked to in class, so I went by her desk whenever we had any free time, asking for help. Now, I really do hate biology, but it's not to an extent that I was failing or anything. Before every single test, or maybe even every other class, I went by her desk for help. Sometimes, most times, she was confused about the material. She has ADHD, and so would tell me the wrong things. Not on purpose, she thought it was correct. Then I would always be surprised at how every single test I got higher grades than her. I normally always get a B+-ish, or around a B-ish. We started dating in late 10th grade, and I told her that I used to go ask for help just to talk to her. She was like, wow, you could have at least corrected me. That way I may have done better. We're still dating, entering freshman year of college. Story 15. It's early sophomore year of college, and I fancied the cute female friend of a friend who seemed interested in me as well. We'd hung out a few times, and she had invited me to visit her family's house upstate to celebrate Labor Day. It's the Friday before Labor Day. I turned 19 that weekend as well, just had my last class and was walking back to the dorm feeling pretty good about the fall 2001 semester so far. I walk across a bridge or walkway in the middle of campus and see my friend and my potential special lady chatting at the base of the Humanities building. Between them and me is the railing of the walkway. A small drop, 10 feet of landscaping, a moderate-sized hedgerow, 4 feet tall by 2 feet wide, and some sidewalk. I decide that it is well within my capability to hop the fence, generate some speed, jump a hedge that is taller than an Olympic hurdle, land triumphantly next to them, and run up the score on my coolness points with the girl I like. My friend made terrified eye contact with me during my sprint to the hedge, and not surprisingly, my feet didn't even clear midway through the hedge. The rest of me landed slightly more softly and skidded to a stop. I had scrapes and bruises in both palms, elbows, and knees. My friend, who was looking at me wide-eyed, yelped, "Why did you just do that?" I hopped up, trying to salvage what was left of my dignity, and quickly determined that in addition to their fair amount of wounds, the left knee was quickly swelling. I finally turned to her friend who had been staring at me so far, winced to say hi, and she took one look and said, "Gotta get to class." My friend also had to leave, and so she made sure I could at least get back to the dorm before shaking her head at my stupidity and running off. I hobbled back to the dorm, whereupon my roommate and a couple of our friends found me trying to clean myself up in her tiny dorm sink. My roommate helped me hobble down to the student health center for actual medical care. I encountered a few other friends that wondered who I'd been fighting with. To my longtime best friend who saw me in this walk of shame, I bellowed, "I hurt myself," in a sing-songy voice from what we assume was the combined frustration and bemusement in my own foibles. The good news, nothing serious happened to me. The bad news, instead of the previous scheduled plans I had to spend my birthday weekend in bed, swapping out frozen cans of lemonade onto my left knee while friends came through to behold the physical evidence of my insane maneuver. The girl and I chatted a bit more for the next couple weeks, but by the time I made my move, she had already been with some weird person who she made friends with while participating in the marching band. College. I had no concept of how to start relationships with the girls I liked in high school or college. Luckily, I put it together later in life and got married to my best friend 2 weeks ago. Congratulations, man. Story 16. I once had the biggest crush on a girl in high school. We're talking years in the making. We were even friendly, occasionally chatting a little. Q1 year, our school is having a date auction for charity where girls volunteer to go to lunch with the winner to raise money for said charity. I have 2 part-time jobs, both at minimum wage. I'm prepared to go to war for my love. Love is in quotes because it was infatuation. Teenagers are dumb. It's Friday and the date is next Tuesday. After a protracted bidding war, I won a date with my crush. I ended up paying the highest price at auction for my date. Came Monday, I was massively sick. Couldn't move from the couch. I woke up Wednesday. When I realized what day it was, I panicked and asked about my date. Apparently, my brother stepped in and went to lunch with her. I was secretly pretty angry, even though he didn't do anything. I responded by stealing his crush in our shared Spanish class 2 years later. Mature? Nope. No hurt feelings, though. The girl's family turned out to be devout Jehovah's Witnesses, so she wasn't allowed to date non-ho-hos. A terrible term for them. I ended up marrying a smoking hot girl I have a ton in common with later in life. No regrets. Story 17. A girl who had a crush on me, totally oblivious at the time, changed 3 of her classes 1 year to be in mine. That summer she kept working on a Spider-Man drawing, my favorite superhero, that she handed to me along with 3 Spider-Man action figures that she bought in Toronto. We go to school south of Seattle on the first day back to school. I simply said thank you, took the gifts, and went on my way completely ignorant to the gesture. It came to a stop after homecoming when I asked no one to go to it that year. Whole time I never read anything into her constant presence. The gifts or the paragraph-long yearbook messages I got 2 years in a row until a whole year after high school and I found the picture. Contacted some acquaintances between us from high school who made it clear just how much of an idiot I was. Called the number in my yearbook, only girl number in the yearbooks, but it was disconnected. Tried to find her through MySpace at the time, but no dice. Then Facebook, not there. Google search, nothing. She had a hyphenated last name, so it was difficult to figure what she went by. I guess none, she didn't get on the social networking bandwagons. Gave up hope of ever reconnecting with her last year. I'm sorry I was stupid, Danielle. I would have loved to have known what our relationship could have been back then. I was a schmuck for never noticing. Didn't think anyone could ever have a crush on me. Story 18. Back in high school, the Honor Society, which I was a member of, did a matchmaking thing around Valentine's Day. The idea was everyone in the school fills out a Scantron personality questionnaire. Some company takes them and delivers back a sheet for everyone stating who you match well with, along with a bunch of other crap like random facts about your birthday. Well, I had neglected to do one until some other Honor Society members approached me and told me to do one now as they are collecting them. I agree to do one. We all pull up a chair at the library table. It doesn't take long for a few other people to come over and start chatting with them, giving me a chance to peek at recently collected Scantrons. Sure enough, the girl I passionately agonized over for years, my close friend that I dreaded to tell my feelings to, had her submission in the pile. I surreptitiously dragged her Scantron from the pile, just enough to bring her answers in view and made sure to align some extra answers. It worked a little too well. I had forgotten about my specious act when the honor sponsor came running up to me exclaiming, "Oh, Frances, you and Crush got the highest compatibility score." This was a true statement, which should have included a little emphasis. By far the highest score. We were reported as 98% compatible. I didn't change that many answers, but I hadn't considered how these things were weighed. This was a surprise. The other surprise was that in addition to everyone's personal top 10 being printed on their result sheet, the top 10 couples in the school were posted everywhere. We beat the second most compatible couple by a full 40%. Whoops. Story 19. I have a few of these stories, but by far, the dumbest thing I've done to be near someone was pour my heart out to someone while being in the friend zone. She was going through a tough time, and I felt she was purposely vague in her feelings about me. And so I decided to hang around her a ton, because we had a lot of free time and had an intense crush on her. She's very intelligent when it comes to her coursework at school, and she works hard to get good grades. She doesn't work as hard at her personal life, though, and falls for every tattooed hunk she can find, makes a mistake with him, and proceeds to cry on my shoulder about the whole ordeal. More than once. I poured my heart out to her. We talked for hours about her stupid man problems and emotional mistreatment. I gave her my best advice because she constantly asked for it. I watched her make bad decisions after bad decision, which really tore me up inside because I had a crush on her. But I also genuinely wanted her to be a happy, whole person and not broken. She never listened to what I had to say, and I would occasionally just stop talking to her altogether because I took what she was doing to herself personally. I don't talk to her much these days. The final straw was when she started contacting exes again for their opinion of her and their relationship. She's found less exasperated shoulders to soil. Never could burst that bubble she lives in. Story 20. During the latter half of my junior year of high school, I spent most days at my best friend's house. To get there, I was required to cross the street in front of my school. I did get this fairly often, every day, but one day was different. As the little white fellow filled the crosslight box, I began to walk, and from across the street I heard, "Hey Sausalito, hurry up." I looked to my left and see what I considered to be the most stunning woman in the world. From then on, I knew her name. Sausalito. Yes, Sausalito. A sophomore, apparently. I'd seen her on occasion, passing between classes, and I should say that those were the best moments of my school day. Though she wouldn't spare a passing glance, it was amazing just to know that I was within 4 feet of her. During the first semester of my senior year, I began to hang out with a friend of mine. His name was Steve or something. He was in journalism, as was Sausalito. It just so happened that he had a crush on her. I let slip my knowledge of her name, but of course she didn't know me. She didn't know that I knew her name. She was one of those people whose name you only knew if you talked to them, so for all intents and purposes, it was weird that I knew her name. It was creepy. I should note, however, that they didn't know that I had a thing for her. The next day, Steve comes by with a copy of the school paper. Now, I need to make clear that my school's paper was one of the most atrocious things I'd ever read. The journalists must have suffered incontinence of the mouth. However, I noticed Sausalito's name. It was a holiday article. Some horse-drawn hayride, if I recall correctly. Of course, that didn't matter to me. What did matter was that it was well written. That was a straw that ripped the camel in twain. I decided that she was too good to let slip by. Now, I was fairly ahead in high school. I had an excess of units, which would have allowed me 3 free periods out of a 6-period day. I could have left school at 11 a.m., but I figured the only thing that I would do with the extra few hours at home was watch television. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that, but when weighed against love, I joined journalism in order to get closer to her. The lengths at which I went to do so seemed creepy, in retrospect. I feel incredibly out of place in journalism. I was a great writer. Maybe I still am, you tell me. So that wasn't a problem. The issue was that I was part of this thing that everyone else had spent years devoting their time to. I was writing front-page articles, but I spared my work with no passion. This made for an incredibly awkward semester. That is, until Pokemon Soul Silver and Heart Gold came out. Those Pokewalkers were a godsend. For some strange reason, everyone in our journalism class played Pokemon. Everyone. Following the release, the first 10 minutes of every class was spent interfacing our Pokewalkers. Connecting my Pokewalker with hers was just as blissful as passing her in the hallways. On a side note, that's also when I realized that these people didn't really give 2 cares about the paper. They just played Pokemon. Well, Pokemon HG and SS had this game that replaced the gambling found in the original Gold and Silver due to some legal issues somewhere. Voltorb Flip. I wasn't a fan, but I noticed that Sausalito loved it. When all of her other classmates had passed that area, she just stopped and played Voltorb Flip. I had already been in the game, so I decided to try and impress her. Yes, with Voltorb Flip. I cringe when I look back on it. Needless to say, I got good. I got good as hell. I maxed out my points in a matter of days. She glanced at my screen and took notice. Congratulations to me. We had a small chat over MySpace regarding all the glorious points I had. I offered to buy her something from the store in the Voltorb Flip parlor, which I would then trade to her by letting a Pokemon hold it. Smooth as can be. Nothing ever came of that, though. Sometimes the journalism class would have potlucks. During one, I baked a batch of marvelous cupcakes in order to impress her. I mean, seriously, who in the world doesn't like cupcakes? Everyone in the class loved them. She had nothing to say. That was disappointing, and a waste of resources. The remainder of senior year followed, and I always failed to talk to her. I was terrified. It was ridiculous, because I had never been so terrified of anything. I wasn't much of a people person and I didn't give two cares about relationships, but she changed that. Talking to her just seemed like such a daunting task. As my graduation approached, I got nervous. After this, I'd never had a chance. I could always talk to her after graduation, but I'd never have a reason to see her. No passing periods, no pokey walkers. I got nervous. Now the final week of school was optional for seniors. Not officially, but none of the teachers gave any care if the seniors showed up. Maybe they were tired of seeing our faces and listening to our stories, or maybe they were genuinely nice people. I'll never know. It doesn't matter, does it? It's hardly relevant, so stop wondering. Time was running short, so I decided to attend the last week of school. While Steve, Sarah, and Andrew were off hanging out and doing what have you, I was in class. Every day I'd sit at a computer and type, all while trying to build up the courage to ask her out or talk to her or something. So it came to the second to last day of school. I was at a small gathering with my close friends, all of whom attended different schools. I was nervous. I turned to my big, non-straight friend for advice because, non-straight guys know women better than us straight males. Turns out stereotypes aren't true. Stereotypes are bad. He suggested that I pregame. Before school. Yes, he wanted me to take some drinks at home and take a couple of drinks before school. The sad part is I actually considered it. Of course, I decided against it. There I was in the last day of school. Journalism had already ended and I was terrified. I proceeded to follow her around school for the entire day. Mind you, I still had a free period after journalism. I waited outside of her classroom and everything. I followed a respectable 24 feet, and every time she would turn around for some reason or another, I would disappear. I would vanish like a leaf in the wind. Wait, what? Several times I built up the courage to burst into a fast walk toward her with intent to ask her out, but at around 4 or 5 feet, I'd lose my vigor and circle around a bungalow and retreat back to my comfortable 24 feet. The day ended. I never asked her out. I regret that. I'm almost certain that I would have been rejected, but I still regret not talking to her. We're friends now. The end.
What is something that instantly ended the crush you had on someone? Fell in love with my best friend. We were both single at the time, both recently having broken up with our serious long-term boyfriends only 1 or 2 months apart. It happened gradually, as we spent time together talking, drinking, going out, going on a holiday, to the movies, concerts, confiding in each other, having dinner together, etc. I actually only realized I'd fallen in love with him when at one of the parties we went to, I came back from the bathroom and found him in the corner kissing some random guy. Not long after, I confessed my love to him. He didn't feel the same way about me. So I took some time off from our friendship to get over it. It was terrible. Like watching the most beautiful thing in the universe slowly circle down the drain, but I did it. I watched it go. Somewhere in between our time apart, he started dating someone. Was shocked when I first saw the picture. Guy looked almost exactly like me. Many of my friends commented on the fact that we looked like brothers. Though everyone knew that qua personality we were nothing alike. And here I get to what it was that ended my crush. The guy my best friend fell for was shallow, possessive, jealous, prone to creating melodrama, and just generally acting like an emotional narcissist. Although I tried befriending him, he actively tried to sabotage my friendship with my best friend. Almost succeeded as well. Skip to 8 years later. We're now married, best friend is miserable and lonely in his faltering relationship, and has developed a crush on me, his most trusted and closest companion. Gosh, we went through so much together and know each other so well, but even if he wasn't with someone else right now, I can't feel it back for him anymore. The fact that he chose to be with someone like that has just completely ended any romantic attraction I had for him. The universe really loves a good cosmic joke, doesn't it? Story 2. Her parents went out of town for the weekend, so she decided to have a party. Nothing crazy, 10 to 12 people. She was 16, I was 17, and we both lived at home, so it was difficult to get much alone time for ourselves somewhere comfortable, so obviously I was invited to stay after everyone left the party. We were both mildly intoxicated, but things went fine, and we went to bed for le sexy time. We fell asleep, but I woke up some hours later with a dry mouth and figured I'd grab a drink, but my girlfriend wasn't in bed beside me. I could hear doors closing and opening in the hallway too. I went to the hall and was met by the view of her squatting over, holding onto a cupboard door for support and taking a dump. I was stunned and just stood there frozen. She finished her business, by which time the smell was hitting me. She then stood up, turned around to face me, but her face was blank, like she didn't register I was there. She picked up the majority of the mess, walked up to the bathroom and chucked it across the bathroom when I heard a very audible splash. I darted back into the bedroom, put my clothes on and tried to escape before she sleepwalked, or whatever she was doing, into the room. I failed. She walked back in as I was about to walk out, and I let her pass, and I dry gagged when she did. She slid into bed, and I bolted down the stairs and off. I told her the next day that I wasn't feeling the relationship going anywhere because I couldn't get past what I saw. The worst part is, her friends all labeled me as a schmuck because they think I slept with her, then dumped her after we had intimacy. I could have told them the truth, but I couldn't do that to her. I really did like her a lot. Story 3. Met an older lady on, don't remember the dating site, actually. I was 24, working way too many hours, and my social life consisted of me sitting at the table with a drink, trying to stay awake while the rest of my friends were having fun and meeting people. So I met this lady. She was 32. She didn't look 32, like, not at all. I'd have believed she was 26, 28 at most if I was pressured into believing that she was older, but she definitely looked my age. No big deal. She didn't lie about her age and asked me if I was comfortable with such an age difference before we wasted each other's time. I decided, why not? She's cool, funny, super smart, and gorgeous. We go see the Star Trek movie, the first J.J. Abrams one, at the theater. All goes well. Conversation afterward is strong, and we spent an hour in my car in the parking lot just talking. It was raining, and I was driving her over to her car. We parked and just talked. End date. Next day, dinner and a movie at my apartment. All goes well. Conversation is still strong. No pretense of anything happening because I had warned her that my female roommate would probably be getting home from work partway through our movie. Roommate did later text me that he was going out with friends and wouldn't be home till late, and asked if I could feed her cats though. So we ate dinner and sat on the couch to watch the movie. Ended up making out. A few dates go by. Same routine, and we're just as interested. Then comes the intimacy. She is apparently very skilled and was quite turned on by the fact that I was relatively inexperienced. Taught me many things, even just the first time. It was awesome. I was in heaven. Then I went over to her place for the first time. She usually came to my place because of how late I'd get out of work, but finally I was getting out at a decent time and we decided to get together at her place. Oh God. It was like she didn't own a vacuum. She had a short-haired dog and several cats. Hair everywhere. You could feel the dirt on the floors. She slept on the couch in a pet hair-coated bedspread instead of her relatively clean bedroom. Dirty dishes everywhere. No counter space available. No trash, but junk piled everywhere. Narrow pathways through the house. I rolled with it for a few weeks. I'd come over and she'd want to cuddle on the couch. I'd insist we just go straight to the bedroom. I didn't mind that part at first until I started realizing that I couldn't possibly have a future with this kind of environment. That as much as I liked her and as great as things were between us, her housekeeping, or lack thereof, was an absolute deal breaker. It's not like I would have expected her to do all the cleaning or anything. I don't mind cleaning and doing housework. It's that she made the mess in the first place. You don't change that behavior. I couldn't live like that. I wanted so badly to get over it because I really liked her and the intimacy was incredible. We really got along well and she was cool as heck. But I couldn't get it out of my head. I broke up with her. And then she became a psycho. She accused me of using her. Truthfully, she was the one that pushed for it and initiated it more than I did. She jumped me the moment we were in private most of the time before I even had a chance to make a move. Then she accused me of egging her house. It was welcome week at the local university and her house was on a main thoroughfare. I lived on the other side of town, would never do something like that. I pleaded with her to believe that I didn't do it. She finally said to just put her books in her mailbox and leave her alone. I hadn't been bothering her. I really had a thing for her. I don't know if it had ever reached what I'd call love, but I wanted to be with her. She was just so damn cool and chill and sweet. Not to mention sexy as hell and amazing in bed. Something that even to this day feels surreal. Breaking up with her was terrible. What was more awful was realizing that I wasn't into her anymore after seeing the filthy conditions she lived in, but still feeling obligated to have intimacy with her. Yeah, she turned me on, no problem. She was still super attractive, but I wanted out of the relationship, and even though I enjoyed it, I still felt guilty because I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. And she didn't. In retrospect, I shouldn't have felt obligated, but she made it so absolutely clear to me how badly she needed it every single day. That not sleeping with her seemed like it would have been a worse thing to do to her than dumping her. If I had to do it again, I'd have dumped her after the first time I saw her house and realized I couldn't be with her. But part of me felt like I was just being superficial and wanted to deny what I was feeling. In the end, I just knew I wouldn't be happy in that situation, and because of that, she wouldn't be happy either. We had fun for a while. She got the thing she craved so badly. I learned a lot from her and gained tons and tons of self-confidence, which I lacked prior, and she ended up getting married like 8 months later. Still, A distinguishedly messy house ended a hardcore crush that could have turned into a serious relationship. Story 4. He was broad-shouldered and had wavy blonde hair and a cleft chin. He sat in front of me in Biology 101, and about halfway through the semester he said, "Hi." I collapsed inside. His voice was melodious and deep. I knew he meant "I love you." He wore thick whale corduroy pants and a nice button-down Oxford shirt and had a worn leather backpack. He was very handsome. In that 3-credit class, I put on my tightest guest jeans, waited until he was there, then sat down behind him and said, "Hi." He would smile and say hello. I collapsed every time. I told my roommates about him. Summer came, and we all went home. I was in my local bar with my friends, and there he was. I couldn't believe it. "Hey," I said. "How are you?" He looked up from his beer. "Wow, hi," he said. We chatted for a little bit. It was in the early 1980s, in a rural area. "Hey, can you do me a favor?" "Sure." "Can you act like my girlfriend?" "What?" Was this a ploy to get me to be his actual girlfriend? Could my dream boyfriend be true? He put his arm around the guy next to him. "Yep, he likes boys." Crush gone. We stayed friends for a while. He was super fun, and I always thought he was so handsome. In truth, it might have been maybe dangerous for him to come out, so when I look back at it, I'm glad he thought he could trust me. Maybe those whale corduroy pants were a warning sign. Story 5. The first night I met this girl, she was drop-dead gorgeous. We were at a party at a university just south of the one I attended. We kissed that same night and started hanging out a lot, but each time I met up with her, she seemed just a little less attractive. Not just her personality, but her appearance as well. There was something off, but I never could quite put my finger on it. Winter break came and she went home to spend time with her mom. She stopped answering my texts for a few days, which I didn't worry too much about. I figured she was busy with family. Plus, I was occupied with some winter activities at a friend's cabin. One day I get back from snowmobiling and get this call from a random number. She's on the other end, barely explaining to her sobs that she had spent the last 4 days in jail. Apparently, her mother had taken her out to dinner as soon as she had made it into town, gotten her intoxicated. She was under 21 at the time, and then proceeded to let her drive home completely intoxicated because she just couldn't say no to her sweet daughter. The two were picked up and detained at a traffic stop where they both resisted arrest. The entire time she's telling me this, I can hear her idiot mom in the background talking crap to the police and justifying her bad parenting. Eventually, I got her on the phone and proceeded to tell her off for providing drinks to her daughter and then letting her drive on top of that. At which point, the girl took the phone and snapped at me while fully backing her mom's stupid decisions. Like mother, like daughter, both clearly were insane. I hung up the phone, deleted her number, and stopped answering her texts and calls. I looked her up on social media a couple days ago, and holy heck, did I dodge a bullet. Story 6. I was talking to a dude. We had held hands, but nothing past that. One day he confessed he was in love with me. Little quick, buddy, but that's not even what stopped me. He commented that I looked just like his ex. Even if that's true, never say it. I can't remember much more besides wanting to stop him mid-speech and give him pointers and asking someone out. So I knew it wasn't going anywhere when my friend asked me to help cover up hickeys from that dude. She didn't know we had been talking. I didn't know they had been past talking. I bowed out, said you can have him, but I don't think you should. Found out later he was talking to 5 of us at once. One was married. I and the married chick noped out of there fast. The others fought over this piece of crap. Hickey girl won and they started dating. Out of nowhere, he tells me he would drop her in a second if I would give him a chance. No. I told her everything. Showed her the texts, trying to save her from the heartache. Didn't listen or care. They're now married, with kids. And he cheats so often she started cheating back in retaliation. I was invited to the wedding and said hell no. Story 7. I was casually dating this guy. As in, we had only recently met and only been on a couple of dates. Back in college. He was educated, had a good job in his own place, polite, etc. Basically no immediate red flags. One day he wanted me to come over for a casual pizza night at his place. I had just finished up a 12-plus hour long day due to my scheduling combination of nonstop classes and a part-time job. I was exhausted. I did not feel like spending nearly an hour doing my hair and makeup to get all dolled up for such a casual date. I texted him something along the lines of, I had a long day. Can we keep it casual tonight? I hope you're okay with yoga pants and a hoodie. He responded with, actually no, that's not okay. When you're spending time with me, you should always make full effort to look your absolute best. Then he started trying to tell me what to wear. Something along the lines of, why don't you put on a pretty dress? Make yourself look nice for me. It was one of the weirdest conversations I've ever had. After he made the dress comment, I simply stopped responding. I never spoke to him again. He kept on texting me for a while, asking what was wrong and why I just disappeared. I honestly don't think he realized what he said was so off-putting. Story 8. When she couldn't make any time for me. I don't mean that she was very busy and didn't put things aside. That would be unreasonable to ask for. No, I mean making plans to meet on a certain day, and then when it came to the day before and I checked, silence. Only to find she was meeting other friends or didn't have anything at all. I've had friends with a huge amount going on, and I've been there myself, and yet we always managed to find a little time, even if it was a few weeks between seeing each other. She didn't have that much happening, and months later, we still haven't met up again. Pity. She was a good friend while we worked in the same place. Story 9. Wasn't training for work one week across the country. Met a guy who lived a couple of hours from me, also on training. Flirted, hung out, made out. Decided to stay in touch and see how things went when we were back in our respective area. So we kept texting and such. My birthday was about 2 weeks after our training was completed. Go to his neck of the woods for a night. Get there and he professes his love for me. Loves me more than he has ever loved anyone before. And had spent several $100s on a tactical weapon for me. I'm not sure why he picked a weapon as my birthday gift. I'm not a hunter or a weapon collector of any sort, but I digress. Nope the hell right out of there after explaining it was too much way too soon. He still insisted I keep the gift, no matter how many times I declined it. So I guess I have this cool weapon now that has never come out of the box. Met a guy on Tinder. Talked for a few weeks while trying to arrange a mutually agreeable time to meet, including talking on the phone several times. Hit it off well. He's attractive in his pictures and seems like a reasonable human. Makes plans to grab a coffee finally. He shows up and looks kind of like the person in his profile pictures, except his two front teeth are brown and it looks like he hasn't brushed his teeth in at least a few days. This picture showed no evidence of poor oral hygiene. Further to that, when I ask him what he would like at the coffee shop, he orders his drink then asks for a sandwich as well. So now he has brown teeth with bread stuck in them. He also had this CCP and had told me that he's always carrying. I'd explained that I'm not super comfortable with weapons on dates, at least until I know someone better. Shows up with 6 weapons on him in various locations in his person. 6. Oh, and a flashlight in his belt. Because you never know when stuff might hit the fan. I don't know what it is with guys and weapons with me, but it's a common theme in my life. Lol. Story 10. Not a crush. It was this 9 out of 10 sophomore my senior year. I was involved with my school's music and drama programs, including the annual spring musical. It was Pirates of Penzance this year. I'd kind of known her through chorus, show choir, and last year's musical, but we were by no means super close. Anywho, we ended up being dance partners for the kind of final number. This was during one of our super long choreography rehearsals. Everyone was hot, sweaty, and frustrated from just learning the number. We were into our last run-through of the song, and the choreographer stops us to give directions to another dancer. I turned to her to make some kind of silly joke, just some polite banter. And when I suddenly met her eyes and my neural network began firing to produce words, everything fell apart instantly. But only I noticed it. Time slowed down before slingshotting back to the present when I realized what had essentially given me a brief stroke. She farted. But not like a, you're cute kind of fart. More so a, do you need me to call an ambulance kind of fart? It literally increased the temperature of the auditorium by 5 degrees Fahrenheit. They say when you stare into the abyss too long, it begins to stare back. But when you are in the abyss for any amount of time, the abyss becomes you. I swear I saw a moth drop after unknowingly fluttering into a nauseous cloud of botulism-enthused Chef Boy knockoff brand ravioli. I looked at her after that split second, and despite the overwhelming sound of paint literally peeling off the walls, she gave me the meekest smile and began to talk to me like nothing happened. What makes this instance so remarkably nasty is how she continued to engage me in pleasant conversation, even being a little flirty with me, all while maintaining intense eye contact. Like she could use her good looks to trick my brain into not smelling her fart, which I can only assume, based on the odor and taste, came from eating handfuls of simmered garbage. I was no longer sure if I believed in God after that or if I just met him. Not only did I immediately lose any attraction that I may have had for her, but I believe she actually made me prejudiced for a few years before I was even able to process what happened, or how to deal with this. Now it's 12 years later. I have a home, a beautiful girlfriend, and a Labrador that we adore. Most days are okay, but sometimes my girl catches me staring off into the distance with an expressionless face. Because I swear, I can still feel the sulfur choke the air from my lungs. Story 11. So I had a few crushes in school, and one in college. Let me tell you what got me on them. This girl was the exact package middle or high school me was looking for. She's actually still a great girl, but what got me instantly disinterested in her was when she talked about her future. It was how well thought out it all was, how possible it seemed for her, and instantly I realized that I couldn't be a part of it. There was just no room for me. And I wasn't sad. It made me happy that she was optimistic for the future, and I was a close friend with her until we graduated. This girl was the exact opposite of me. I had no interest in her whatsoever because of that for a while. When our best friends got together, we kind of had to associate ourselves with one another. But even after they broke up, we kept hanging out and eventually developed a crush. I strongly suspect that she also had feelings, but high school being high school, I never blatantly asked her anything. She moved, and I was still very hung up on her because she was awesome. I immediately got over her when I saw a picture of her on social media saying how happy she was to be with family. It warmed my heart. Girl number 3, and my final high school crush, was just a perfect girl to most guys, but I never really saw her as a romantic interest or anything. I never really wanted to date her even. She was just like a celebrity crush, but the celebrity and I were great friends. I did ask her to prom and she did say no, but it wasn't harsh, and we were still very close friends for the rest of the time. She's still an incredible person and the world is her oyster. I'm sure she's still getting plenty of attention. College girl was not my initial interest or anywhere near my type, but she's probably one of the most important on this list, because when she called me out on my crap for acting like a little wuss, I realized how much of a child I still was and grew up. Not to be with her, I didn't want that, but to be who I wanted to be and who I should have been from the beginning. She saw through some of me, not that it was an act, but the part of me that I was hiding from myself, and forced me to be introspective. It hurt a lot, and I didn't talk to anybody or leave my room for days, but I ended up a much better person for my time thinking to myself. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 12. I've got 2 stories to tell. I was seeing this girl for about a month, and we were getting along pretty well, other than it was incredibly hard to plan stuff with her because she was always busy. We were not serious yet, but we had talked about it a lot. Anyways, one night I'm hanging out with a buddy at this park. I was supposed to go on a date with this girl, but she canceled because she had to work. So we're wandering through the park and we stumble across this couple who were having intimacy out in a dense forest area and clearly didn't want to be discovered. It's really dark, so we can't see their faces, but we can see their silhouettes. I recognize the voice of the girl as the one I've been seeing. So I turn on a flashlight, and sure enough, it's her. She hadn't realized anyone was there and immediately freaked when she saw it was me. I didn't say a word. I just turned off my light and walked away. She texted me a few hours later trying to apologize, and I never responded to her. I'm not cool with people or with others on the side if you're consistently seeing someone. A few months after this incident, I was on a first date with another girl and we went to get sushi in the city. The majority of the night we spent talking and getting to know each other. The girl had no interests, no hobbies, didn't read, and really only slept on watch Netflix when she wasn't at work. I'm a person of many interests and I enjoy trying new things, so finding out she was about as boring as a rock really was a letdown. I paid for dinner and ended the date. Story 13. I had this huge crush on this crazy girl I knew from high school. In college, we started talking and hanging out. She had just broken up with her boyfriend and we went out on a date. While on the date, she broke down crying about the guy, but that was okay. I understood, and as a friend, I consoled her. This wasn't what threw me off. She ended up completely ghosting me after that night. We didn't speak for maybe 3 months. I went to a sleepaway camp to work as a counselor for the summer. At that point, she was a distant memory. I received a phone call one night, and it was her. She was crying, saying I was never going to want to speak to her again and that I wouldn't even want to be her friend. It took some time to get it out of her, but apparently, she went back to her ex. He was cheating on her and gave her a disease. I lost interest immediately in being anything more than friends. She seemed okay with that and asked me not to tell people about it. We stopped talking for quite some time after that. Fast forward a year and my brother comes home saying this girl was running around with his group of friends, claiming that I stopped speaking to her because she wouldn't have intimacy with me. Needless to say, I told him the truth and people ended up finding out about her disease. She was livid about that, but honestly, screw her for spreading false rumors. Story 14. Date number 2. Took her to La Cafe in Houston for drinks and then Landry Seafood for dinner. After dinner, as the valet brings the car and we hop in, she exclaims, "You know, that doesn't work on me." Puzzled, I sincerely ask, "What do you mean?" She replied, "Holding doors open for me. That doesn't work. I know you guys do that just to get in her pants." Even more puzzled, I told her that I hold doors open for anyone I see coming. Women, men, kids. It's just how I was raised. It was a reflex. something I don't even think about. Her response, yeah, that's what you all say, but then we give it up and you suddenly have no interest in being polite. You've already got the goods and you turn into schmucks. At that point, I was flabbergasted. I had never heard someone complain about having a door held for them, let alone tell me I was secretly a schmuck for doing it. So I decided to self-fulfill her prophecy and turn into a schmuck. After a while, it dawned on her that I wasn't driving to our next planned location. She inquired where we were going, and I told her we were headed to her house. She started getting angry that I would let her proclamation ruin our night. I let her vent, and as soon as we got to her house and she got out of the car, I was gone. Story 15. When I was about 15, I was really into this girl in the neighboring school. Very pretty, and seemed really cool when I used to text her and message her on Facebook. After meeting up with her in my town one day with a bunch of other friends, we went our own way and started making out and whatever. I was delighted. I was shy and always never made an effort to try and get with girls because I was afraid of rejection, I suppose. I thought I was onto a winner with her. But then we walked around our small town that day for a while, and while walking around, we saw a lot of people that we both knew, and we would both say hi, hello, whatever, because they were friends. But after nearly every encounter we had, she would say after that she hated that person, or that she's a witch. I can't stand him. Oh my God, I hate them so much. Although she really liked me, I think. She seemed to have something to say about everyone behind their back and was just nasty. It really put me off of her. Got a girlfriend the next year who was the nicest, kindest girl I've ever met, and still with her 6 years later. Turns out cool and catty can be two sides of the same coin. Story 16. Super hot girl I had a crush on. Her sister and I worked together and I got invited to a family barbecue. Hot girl and I totally hit it off. I remember my coworker or girlfriend told me to stay away, but I thought it was more about don't sleep with my sister than a warning. One night I was driving us to a concert and on the freeway some schmuck cut me off. I honked and she rolled down her window and flipped him off and started yelling obscenities at him. I laughed because I thought it was cool that she and I were partners in this. Then when she calmed down, she told me about a time when some guy cut her off. She wrote down his plates and found out where he lived, an hour drive away, then planned her weekend around going to the guy's house in the middle of the night to slash his tires and then drive the hour back home. I thought that was weird. Then she told me about a time her neighbor politely asked her if she and her roommates could avoid playing loud music past 11 at night. Way more than reasonable. During the week because he had a difficult time sleeping. Her response was, "Screw you, we're young and we need to have fun." A few nights later, she was intoxicated and recalled the conversation she had with her neighbor, I guess, and proceeded to jump into his backyard, grab every single koi fish out of his pond and leave them in his backyard. Both times she had this whole they deserved it attitude. I stopped talking to her after that. I had to tell her sister, my coworker, to keep her away from me. Coworker was like, "I told you, but you didn't listen." And I was like, well, crap. Next time tell people she's crazy and tell them these stories instead of just a warning. Anyhow, last I heard she was married to a cop. Yin and yang, I guess. Story 17. Got two. This one girl in middle school was a good friend of mine, and I really liked her. Then I introduced her to my friend and neighbor, who was one of those edgy, bring my weapons to school because I'm mentally ill and I harm myself. He was neither cutting himself nor mentally ill, aside from craving attention. Anyway, she hopped in that bandwagon and became really edgy and depressed too. But I still liked her until one day she came on the bus, rolled up her sleeve, brandished her forearm to the whole front of the bus with glee and announced that she had cut herself. One tiny cut. It hadn't even bled. Which is good, but the fact that she was so adamant in receiving attention for it and sullying the struggles of actually depressed people, of whom I was one, was such an instant turnoff. I felt nothing but utter disdain for her ever since. I still tell people the story to this day and get furious about it. Funnily enough, when I moved away at the end of the year, she told everyone I no longer kept in touch with that. Second story is more recent. I just graduated high school and spent the first semester of the past year crushing on another friend. She found out in February by prying it out of me. In fact, she kind of tricked me. I didn't reciprocate those feelings. Another guy started crushing on her, a friend of ours in the grade below, and she led him on too. She even used him to get a free breakfast one day because he asked her out. That was the point at which I stopped liking her, but then another guy started crushing. He asked her to prom and she said yes. He too was led on. She claims to be asexual but keeps talking about this guy she met while on a mission trip in Jamaica last summer, with whom she's been talking all year and really likes. We always said we would keep in touch after graduation, but I don't see myself talking to her in any significant amount ever again at this point. Story 18. I remember this one quite well. There was this girl I had my eye on in high school. My girlfriend and I had broken up recently, and this girl, let's call her S, invited me over. She was super cute, and I was so excited. Tess and I were hanging out on her trampoline, all close-like and whatnot, just talking for now, but she was getting closer, and I knew we were going to kiss soon. Well, a friend of mine, T, gets brought up. TNS had a fling a little while back. She proceeds to talk about how the only reason she even wanted him at the time is because he wasn't single, that he was dating another girl long-term. I recall that she hooked up with him right after he broke up with his girlfriend. I think she told me this because she didn't want me to think she had real feelings for another guy. But holy hell, it hit me like a ton of bricks that this girl was only interested in me because I had been with my previous girlfriend for as long as I'd known her. So I backed off and left. No scene or anything, just an, I'm getting tired, better go home, type goodbye. My girlfriend and I got back together very shortly, and I learned the value of commitment. That girlfriend has been my wife for 8 years now, and we have a wonderful 6-year-old boy with another on the way. Story 19. This girl I liked ended up going to our senior prom with a good friend of mine. I wasn't really jealous or anything. I legitimately wanted them to have a good time despite the feelings I had for her. Apparently, my friend asked her to prom over Snapchat, and her response was, yeah, sure, when he asked her. He told her that she didn't have to go if she didn't want to in a respectful manner, but she insisted that he was being silly and that she really wanted to go with him. Day of prom, my friend was super excited, but for the entire prom, she was stone cold towards him. She never looked at him, talked to him, danced with him, or even took photos with him. They got the opportunity to take a certain number of photos for free before any additional fees, and she took all of these photos with her girlfriends rather than my friend. They got to the point where he kept trying to get her attention and talk to her, but she just wasn't having it. He felt so legitimately embarrassed that he pulled a chair at his friend's table and ate with him and his boys. At the end of the night, she told a mutual friend of theirs that she never wanted to go with him in the first place. This mutual friend told my boy since they're tied and she felt that he deserved to know. Knowing that this chick pretended to be excited to go to prom with my friend and then made no effort at all to make it a good time for either of them made me resent her afterwards. After almost a year of dealing with my feelings for this girl, that moment I felt so free from those feelings and it felt so good. Also, my friend ended up meeting another girl at our prom, so it was a win-win for both of us. That girl is super selfish and oblivious to other people's feelings, so I doubt she was hurt during this whole ordeal. I'd say it was a win-win-win situation in the end. Story 20. Talked to a girl for a while that had met through a mutual friend. Everything seemed to be going pretty well. We texted a lot, saw each other often, went on a couple dates. I assumed heavily they were dates. And then one day she tells me about some smoking hot guy she gave her number to and was planning to meet later. All right, I've been friend-zoned. It's cool. She's a pretty awesome person to hang out with, so I tell her that's nice for her and then fire up the old Tinder profile and go from I'm bothering you because I like you to we talk because we're friends. A few days later, she stopped texting me completely and I feel like I did something wrong. So I called a mutual friend. He tells me that she was trying to make me jealous to elicit some testosterone-driven proclamation of love. I'm a simple man. That's not my style. Knowing she was trying to pull my strings was just a huge turnoff, and I ended up not even trying to reconnect with her. Probably says more about me than about her, but I just couldn't bring myself to try with her after that. Story 21. I identify as bisexual, so I'll give 2 examples. I was friends with a girl I worked with. We were both 18 to 19, but yeah, massive crush. At first, I was just happy being friends. I figured it was better than nothing, but I was working up the courage to ask her out. One day I had plans to do something with my bestie, and when she texted asking what I was up to, I told her and said she was welcome to tag along. She was really quiet and weird, and made an excuse to go. Later I called her and she was all like, I didn't know your friend was Italian. Before going into a rant of all the races she dislikes with no explanation as to why, but a general prejudiced attitude, which conflicted with my upbringing of treating everyone as equal. After that, I said I'd be friendly at work because I had to be. A few years later, there was a guy I liked, who I met through a friend. We'd hang out. It was the days when you had to be really lucky to have cable internet and not dial-up, so he'd let me download music, movies, TV shows. Thought he was a pretty cool guy. There was talk of fooling around, but I said I didn't want to ruin a friendship, and if any fooling around was to be had, I'd prefer if he made it official. Anyway, we usually got takeaway and went back to his place to eat while a movie was on. First couple of times, he was really nice and friendly to the guy serving us. But one day, this girl served us, and he was so rude. I later asked why, thinking I missed something she did or said, and he just said, I just don't like women unless they're on TV or I'm related to them. How stupid. As you can gather, I'm all for equality and acceptance. Story 22. I had the biggest crush on this girl from a young age and all the way into middle school. She was on the highest pedestal in my mind. Attractive, very sweet, and a close friend. I remember I kind of gave up the idea I'd ever ask her out as she was never single for long and I thought she was out of my league. But I was happy to feel like we had been elementary school friends and that she would probably be someone who'd always have my back. However, I think as she got older and realized pretty much every guy was into her, she took the low road. One day at school, I was walking through a crowd and trying to just get around a trash can. I wasn't the most confident kid and I had my head down looking at the ground most of the time. As I waited patiently by the trash can for the crowd to thin, I heard a familiar voice, but a harsh tone told me to get out of the way. When I looked up, it was her and her boyfriend trying to impatiently get through. The look on her face was like she didn't even know me and they just shoved past me, knocking me into the trash can, and there was no sense of remorse whatsoever. My first childhood crush was done after that interaction. I never spoke to her again and actually avoided her when I saw her in the hallways. Looking at my feet when I walked became even more common after that. Story 23. I was once in love with a girl that went to my high school, but at the start of the new school year, she moved to a city about 60 kilometers away from mine. When we were together, in the same high school, I noticed she liked me a bit. She was imitating me, laughing at things that aren't funny, all those things that make you know someone has a crush on you. But as I said, she moved to another city. 6 months after she left her town, I decided to text her. I knew she forgot me and had a new crush. She was publishing Instagram stories with other guys from her new high school. Everything went fine the first days. We were talking like normal friends, and I knew she was coming to the town in the summer. I was dreaming about dating her in summer and remembering the good old days next to her. I was going to be 1 year away from her, but I made the mistake of requesting her to meet. I thought she was going to say, okay, let's see if we can meet this summer. But instead of this, she instantly said, no, I've got new friends, and do you think I'm stupid? I know you like me, but I don't want anything with you. I felt very broken and upset for about a month. I know this is not what you expected, as this happens very often, I think. Maybe the real mistake in the story was that I was very shy and I didn't want to request her, as I was thinking she would lose all her faith with me. What is the cringiest thing you have done to get a crush's attention? I took in actual physical prints of photos of myself doing what I thought were sexy poses. For some reason, I did these poses in rain boots in my wood-paneled basement. And then at school, I dropped the pictures out of my bag in front of my crush. He helped me pick them up and didn't have much to say about it, so I just shoved them back into my bag. At some point during the rest of the school day, they must have fallen out of my bag. I didn't notice. About a week later, this girl brought half of the pictures to me and said something like, these were on a bench in park in the neighboring town. I thought you might like them back. I have many times imagined what their mortifying journey to that park must have been like. I never got the other half back. Someone might still have prints of me posing in rain boots, or maybe I'm an unsolved police case. Hey, remember those pictures we found of a girl being made to pose in some sicko's wood-paneled basement? It was an embarrassing and edifying experience. Now I'm just really glad that I didn't have cell phone picture messaging at the time, or the pictures could have been made it a lot further than just the park in the neighboring town. Thank God you didn't have Snapchat back then. Story 2. 9th grade. The last day before Christmas break, there was a girl on the school bus who was once into me earlier in the year but had now cooled off for some reason. I needed to get the fire going again. I was going to bring mistletoe on the bus, pull it out of my backpack at some point and be like, oh yeah, this stuff grows everywhere. I was just picking some of it this morning while I was waiting for the bus. And that's all. What I was hoping for was that she would get the nerve to kiss me since I was holding mistletoe. Well, mistletoe grows high up in the tree. So I cut off a piece of holly and trimmed the thorns off of it because who really knows what mistletoe looks like anyway. So I'm sitting on the bus, she's sitting behind me, and I'm working up the nerve. Then the bus stops. This guy gets on and immediately proceeds to give this girl a rose. And she gets excited and hugs him. And I'm sitting there with a trimmed holly branch in my backpack. Oh my gosh. First heartbreak. Story 3. When I was about 15 or 16 years old, I went on a family holiday with my mom and sister to Italy. We were staying in a hotel with a shared swimming pool, and there were a few other families with kids of similar ages all hanging out. I used to see this girl, roughly my age or maybe a couple of years older, pretty much every day by the pool. Blonde hair, nice body, just basically gorgeous. I think because she smiled at me a couple of times, I convinced myself that she must be the one, and due to boredom, this was before smartphones, the internet, I spent basically the whole week gearing myself up to go and talk to her. I spent days just thinking of ways I could approach her, what to say, building up courage. It was the most important thing in my life at that moment, but it was difficult because she was always around her family or I was around mine. There never seemed to be an opening. Then right at the end of the holiday, the perfect moment presented itself. I was by the pool, alone. Gio was by the pool, alone. This was my time. This was everything. It all comes down to this moment. So what's it going to be? Am I going to be a man and approach her, or spend the rest of my life in turmoil wondering what might have been? So I walked up to her. I smile. She smiles. I say hello. She looks confused. I say hello again. She still looks confused. Tie? Nope. That didn't work either. This is going horribly. Why did I do this? I asked her if she wanted a drink because, of course, if she can't understand a basic hello in English, then a full sentence was definitely the best way to proceed. And she looked even more confused. I think during this whole exchange, which felt like 2 hours but was in reality only about 26 seconds, she had only said the word, eh? With a mixture of bewilderment and pity. So I walked to the bar, bought 2 lemonades. I wasn't old enough to buy anything a little more suave, but walked back over to her. I mean, I'm invested at this point, right? No point in backing out now. Otherwise, I would have just made a total fool out of myself for absolutely no reason. I place her lemonade down next to her. She says, thanks. So she did speak English. You freaking liar. And I swagger away feeling like James Bond. Until I dropped my glass, which smashed into tiny pieces, most of which went into the pool, which then had to be evacuated while the staff cleaned glass out of it. And I got told off by the lifeguard, right in front of her and her family who had since returned and were all staring at me. Hit me up if you need advice on how to approach the ladies, fellas. I will do exactly that, bro. Story 4. In elementary, I went to school with a couple dudes that were very gymnastically inclined. They would do a double backflip off the swings instead of just one. They would do flips off the monkey bars, standing backflips, wall flips, you name it. The girls loved them. They would sit and be an audience for these guys every lunch almost. I got jealous. I practiced on the trampoline for a few days, tried some handsprings, which I got pretty good at. Forwards, not backwards. Then the next time they were showing off, I joined them. Boom guy number 1 comes running through, handspring, cartwheel, backflip, backflip. Guy number 2 comes bolting behind him, cartwheel into aerial, into backflip. Here I come, cartwheel into back handspring. Oh wait, I don't know how to do one backwards. Land on my neck, wind myself, start crying. Story 5. My own tale of cringe. I had a crush on a guy who I had 2 classes with. It made sense in my 15-year-old brain that intense eye contact would signal to him that I was all in. Every time I had to talk about something, I stared directly into his eyes without blinking. Also, I read that people like large eyes, but I couldn't do makeup since mascara makes your eyes look larger. I would make my eyes as wide as I could. This also meant that if I was talking to another boy, I should look away as much as possible so he didn't think I was into them instead. So the guys in class thought I was really standoffish, and I'm sure he thought I wanted to end him. Sorry, Jack. No, that's the right thing to do. Story 6. Back in high school, I had an absolutely massive crush on a boy in my English lit class. Let's call him Jim. So what did I do? Did I initiate a conversation to ask if he wanted to go to a movie with me? Of course not. That would require rational thought, which my hormonal and romantically starved brain was completely incapable of. Instead, I decided to write Jim a, get ready for this, Harry Potter fanfic. In the story, I was smack in the face, obviously, Ginny, and he was Harry. Yes, really. I actually handed him this masterpiece of literature in class, with a quick, here, this is for you, blushing a nice deep shade of red. I realized my mistake almost immediately, but short of yanking it out of his grasp, and I was really considering it, it was too late to do anything. After that, I made it my mission at school to avoid seeing him as much as possible. There was no eye contact and definitely no conversation. There is a happy ending to the story, though. I actually started dating him a year after high school. We've been married for 9 years now. He still has the story. Whenever he wants to tease me, he'll bring it out and read it. I still turn a beautiful shade of tomato red just like I did 14 years ago. Story 7. I was young. Called Crush's phone every 60 seconds for an hour. No answer. Repeat. I figured she'd pick up when she got home and I wanted to talk to her ASAP. Unfortunately, she was on the phone with someone else the entire time, getting the you have another call notifications about incoming calls. Just wasn't responding to them. After about the 60th time, she picked up and screamed, "What?" And I tried to worm out of it like it wasn't me that I just called her over and over and over. She didn't buy it, of course. This one still keeps me up at night 30 years later. It would keep me up at night. Story 8. We had a foreign exchange student in my freshman year of high school. She was French and absolutely gorgeous, so naturally all of us boys were smitten with her. She was in choir and sang really well, so I figured since I was a musician as well, that was my in with her. So I busted my back and learned a love song from a very popular French opera. It took me a really long time to memorize and I thought it would be a bold gesture. So I sang it to her flawlessly and asked her how she liked it, thinking that taking the effort to learn a love song in her language would be a great gesture. Well, that day I found out that she was Swedish, not French. I'm freaking stupid. Story 9.
For some reason or another, I'd been bragging about my ability to spit a watermelon seed with crazy accuracy. The young woman to whom I had made these claims, which probably should have sent her sprinting in any direction other than toward me, challenged me to hit her textbook as a show of this alleged skill. I'd like to mention that I did not tell her to stand directly in front of me. Anyway, my first shot went wide. Sailing far off to the girl's left, she said something akin to "ta," and took to lightheartedly berating me for overblowing the scope of my abilities. As she was speaking, I fired my second shot, and against all odds, it landed directly in her mouth. Needless to say, we were both shocked. And in an effort to evoke some humor from the situation, I said something to the effect of, "Oh hey, since we've sort of kissed already now, want to make it official? Just in case you were wondering, it's definitely not the best idea to suggest tonsil hockey when your intended paramour is already suppressing gags." Story 10. This hurts to remember. One summer break, after my 6th grade, I saw the boy I had a crush on at a festival in my hometown. I had no idea how to get his attention, so I deliberately placed my foot in front of a woman pushing a baby buggy so that she'd run over it. Made a big scene out of it and started to yell and pretend that it hurt really badly. It didn't. Poor woman looked traumatized. That's one of the stories that keeps me awake at night. Oh, and by the way, he did notice that and proceeded to laugh at me with his friends. What was I thinking? Well, that was the universe's sign that you should stop having a crush on that guy. Story 11. Oh, I win. MySpace era story. Let's start at the beginning. I was insanely in love with this girl I'd known since the first day of kindergarten. I told her many times all the way through elementary, and despite this, she treated me as a valued friend. Well, I got to middle school, 7th grade, and I decided I needed to step up my game. Obviously, she couldn't see my dedication, so I deleted all my top friends except for her and proceeded to pour my heart all into my page. Wrote a number of paragraphs professing my love for her, detailing how I would just sometimes sit with my friend and cry because of how much I loved her. But she was a real-life angel walking on Earth. Oh, I couldn't keep going on without her and wanted her to love me back. It was incredibly painful to read a few years later. To make matters worse, I went to school the next day and made sure I told all my friends to go check out my page that I'd made some updates. So everyone saw it. I ended up taking it down, and a close friend of hers told me that she would probably be more receptive if I just gave her some space for a while. I got crapped on for a long time after that, but we did end up dating the very next year for a couple months. Story 12. I was awkward in high school around girls, and when I finally got a job, I tried everything I could to meet or interact with them. Ended up working at a video store and met a very good-looking girl checking out a movie. I pulled up her number from the system and called her after I was sure she was home and asked her out. As soon as I started the conversation, I knew I'd crossed a line, but I tried to keep going. It's been years now, but I still feel like a creep for doing that. Story 13. I guess it's not as bad as the rest, but my cringiest story actually worked, so... Anyway, first day of orientation week at university, my friend tells me that there's this guy I have to meet. She just met him because they live on the same floor in residence. She's convinced we'll be fast friends, so finally, we all make plans to go watch the school rugby team play one afternoon. I'm sitting there with a few of my friends, and my friend comes around the corner with this guy I'm supposed to meet. My immediate reaction is, oh my god, I would hit that. But being an awkward little schmuck, I'm so bad at the getting to know you small talk that I so badly want to make with him. And I'm sitting in silence, racking my brain for an excuse to talk to him. That's when I decided to ask him if he knew the rules to rugby. I laughed and said I wasn't sure what was going on in the game and would he be willing to explain it to me. My friend is giving me this what the heck look because I played rugby all through high school, so I definitely knew the rules. But I couldn't think of any other excuse to have an extended conversation with him, and I desperately wanted to. So I sat there like an idiot, pretending not to understand the sport I'd played for 5 years just to have an excuse to chat. Anyway, we've been together 11 years and just celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary. Also, yes, I did eventually admit to him that I completely lied about the rugby thing. Story 14. Not me, but I'll post anyway. At the site where I was doing the practicum part of my graduate school program, there was a fellow trainee who I could tell liked me, but never had the opportunity to work with me or have any reason to talk to me. One day I was in the library doing some research and was crouching down, scanning the lowest bookshelf in a stack looking for the book I needed. This girl, accidentally on purpose, dropped a book on my head as she slowly walked past me and proceeded to apologize profusely and take the opportunity to run her hand slowly over the spots on my head and shoulders where the book had hit. She then stuck around and flirted with me awkwardly for the next 5 to 10 minutes before handing me a slip of paper with her email address in case I ever wanted to study together. Being married, I didn't take her up on her offer. I certainly felt flattered. She wasn't bad looking at all, plus I have a lot of respect for women who have the nerve to make the first move on a guy they like. I just didn't have the heart to tell her that she might want to be a little more subtle next time. It doesn't have to beat a guy over the head with it. Story 15. My dad tells the story of when he was like 9 years old. He was waiting at his school bus stop with a couple of girls that he liked.
There was a big rock by him that was like a mini boulder. He told the girls he could throw this rock over a moving car. I guess he wanted them to think he was strong or something. But who waits for a car to drive by? Lifts and chucks the giant rock, but instead of going over the car, it crashes into the car's windshield. The car stops and the preacher of his church comes out, super angry. My dad then booked it home. Story 16. So this girl was her class topper for years, and I was always second. In our final year, we found out that I was getting 2 more marks than her overall, so she'd be second for the first time. I saw her sad and almost tearing up, so my idiot self went and told the examiner that I'd been awarded 5 extra marks as a miscalculation, and guess what, the examiner didn't even double check. So yeah, that was one time I sacrificed a personal endeavor for love or crush. She knew what I had done for her and several other instances, but never wanted me back likewise. Oh, I miss those days regardless of the ultra-turbo cringe. You could have been more successful, but instead you gambled it all for nothing. Story 17. A female friend of mine, to whom I was admittedly attracted, had been expressing her reservations about an upcoming vacation with her family. Though it wasn't being overtly presented as such, the trip was meant as a way of re-solidifying her parents' marriage, which had been a touch rocky at the time. They would all be driving from San Francisco to Redding, which is a small town in the middle of absolutely nowhere in Northern California, where they'd stay at a bed and breakfast inn for a weekend before continuing northward for some unknown destination. In keeping with the alleged purpose of this so-called vacation, my friend's parents had booked 2 rooms at the inn. To her dismay, though, my friend discovered that her mother would be occupying one room, her father would have the other, and that she and her sister would have each to bunk with one of their parents. This was worthy of lament on its own, but it was made unforgivably worse by the verbal diarrhea that I offered in an attempt at providing comfort. "Oh, it won't be so bad," I told my friend. "Your father will probably enjoy sleeping with you." A moment passed before I realized what I had said. Then, with a feeling of growing horror, I tried to explain myself. "Wait, I didn't mean it like that," I hurriedly said. "I mean, like, he's probably sick of sleeping with your mom." "No, wait, I just mean that he wants to spend some quality time with his daughter." If I had stopped there, I might have been able to salvage the situation, but as it happened, I decided that the best course of action would be to keep talking. "I can't say that I blame him, really. I'd love to sleep with you. She and I don't talk much these days." Story 18. First story. I hoarded a bunch of stuffed animals I won from a local arcade throughout the summer for my crush. One day, I decided I would walk to my crush's house unannounced a few miles down the road and present her with a garbage bag filled with said stuffed animals. She was completely confused as to why I was at her doorstep at night, and she was even more confused when I presented her with a garbage bag. I don't really explain why I brought them to her because I felt the romantic gesture would do the talking. I got the most awkward "thanks," followed by the door being shut in my face. I thought I was such a romantic. Second story. I had a huge crush on this girl in my health class in high school. I so badly wanted to hit on her, but I couldn't find the courage to do it. One day I concocted this brilliant plan to finally tell her how attractive she was without coming off weird. During class, I whispered to her, "Hey, my friends are betting me $4. I won't tell you how hot you are out loud. I'll give you half the money if you let me do it." She gives me a bit of a weird look, but agrees. After class, as we're walking out, I get her attention and audibly tell her, "Wow, you're looking so hot today." Audible enough to give off the impression my friends were watching this cringeworthy exchange take place. She awkwardly thanks me. I slip her $2 and we part ways. As you may have correctly guessed, no one had bet me to call her hot, and I just paid a girl $2 to compliment her out loud. Cringe. Story 19. In first grade, I had a crush on this girl in my class. My nickname at the time was Snakebite. Adults gave it to me. I don't know. Well, I told her my nickname was Snakebite, and it just so turns out that she loves snakes. So we became friends for a while. One day, we were in music class, sitting on the floor, listening to the teacher. I thought this would be the perfect time to serenade her with a song of my people. So I started slithering around her in a circle, making hissing noises. The teacher promptly asked me what on earth I was doing, and embarrassment ensued. "Yeah, dude, what on earth were you doing?" Story 20. I was like 8 at a roller skating rink, and there was a really cute boy there who maybe was like a year older than me. And I thought that if I kept pace with him, he would eventually talk to me. Well, it turns out he was the most horrible roller skater I've ever seen, and he fell over like almost every 30 feet. I was so determined to keep pace with him that every time he fell, I decided to fall too. I was really good at skating then, so when I came home, Mom was very concerned that I had bruises all over and thought I must have gone into a fight or something. She laughed hysterically when I told her what actually happened, and she still gives me crap for it. Never once did that cute boy talk to me. Can't imagine why. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 21. Not my story, but my roommate's. Back in high school, he took this girl out hiking for the first date. They reached the top of the peak and all was going well.
Then my roommate gets a call from his mother telling him he needs to do some chores and she won't take no for an answer. Angry at his mom, my roommate promptly tells the girl, "I gotta go," and speeds off down the mountain. Stunned, the girl just stands there. My roommate comes around the bend, lower down, and makes eye contact with the now furious girl. Unsure of how to respond, my roommate dabs and continues running. Fast forward to the end of the school year. A couple months later, and he sees her for the first time in a while and asks her to sign his yearbook. She proceeds to write, "Every time I see you dab, I want to pass away." That has to be the cringiest thing ever. Story 22. I was about 13. I really liked her, yet had hardly spoken to her all school year. May rolled around and I finally decided to make a move. I show up at school wearing a nice button-up shirt and combed hair. For some reason that escapes me, my dad had me bring a bouquet of roses and a card for her. I kind of left them on her desk when no one was looking. Eventually, I didn't have the courage to ask her out and asked one of my friends to tell her how I feel, that I'd suffer for her and bear her burdens for her and pass away for her if necessary. She kindly turned me down and I ended up crying under my desk. Story 23. The 17-year-old sad and awkward me basically fell straight into the friend zone. I did too many cringy things to list, but here are a few instances. I thought if I made myself indispensable to him, he'd eventually fall for me, so I basically journaled all of his coursework for the entire term on the day before submission. Later that year, he got intoxicated and called me. Somewhere in the rambling, he casually said, "Love ya." You'd not make a big deal of that, right? Wrong. I called him the next day to remind him he said this, and that's not all. I then followed it up with, "I love you too." Yep. So an awkward conversation later, I went on to avoid him for the next year or so. Story 24. My freshman year, I had a crush on a quiet new guy in my class. My English teacher made us write poems all the time, and sometimes she would have us read them out loud. I thought it would be a great idea to write love poems vaguely describing him in hopes, number one, she would call on me to read it. Number two, he would recognize that I was abstractly describing him, and number three, fall in love with my superior writing skills and subsequently me. Never actually read one out loud. Did wind up dating him for 5 months though. Story 25. This was probably my sophomore year in high school. I forgot the name of the class, but we used Adobe Dreamweaver to create websites. Our computers also had another program on them that created cards and brochures. I decided to make a card with a starry night background and a quote about how the stars align and how beautiful she is on it. It was so bad. At the time, I thought it was awesome. When class ended for the day, I walked up to the girl I had a crush on, handed it to her, and said, "Here, I like you. This is for you." In a creepy, crackling voice. And I did a 180 and ran away as fast as I could down the halls without getting into trouble. Looking back, I knew I was an idiot. Also, she never spoke to me again after that day. Story 26. I didn't think it was when I did it. Still not sure it was now, but I can see how it would be interpreted as such. I've been on a couple of dates with this woman, chatted a ton by text and phone. Things didn't work out for whatever reason. We reconnected about a year later, went out to dinner, shared a nice kiss in the parking lot, go our separate ways. Happened to be behind her car for a few miles. She pulls into a convenience store parking lot. I pull in behind her, walk up to her as she's getting out of her car and give her another kiss. She accepted it. Then sent me a text later that night explaining that it was super creepy and she doesn't want to see me again. Yeah, what did you think would happen, bro? Story 27. When I was about 8 years old, we took a field trip to the Field Museum here in Chicago. We had a lunch break and I wandered off to the gift shop to see what they had. I had a huge crush on this girl named Victoria in my class, and I saw this ladybug ring for a couple of dollars. I knew she liked ladybugs, and I had money my parents gave me to buy something at the shop, so I decided to buy the ring and give it to her. I was really nervous and kept waiting for the right time to do it. I eventually decided to just go for it and walked up to her near the end of the trip. She was with some of her friends, which made me more nervous, but I found the courage to do it. I looked at the ring and laughed. Her friends joined her, and she then tossed the ring in the trash. I was completely devastated and tried hard to hold back my tears. Even though I'm over it now, that completely screwed my confidence with girls for a long time. Looking back, it may have embarrassed her by giving it to her in front of her friends, which is why she reacted that way. It's not as cringe as a lot of the stuff here, but it's something that I personally cringe about because it was so embarrassing for me. Story 28. When I was 7, I had a huge crush on this boy named Chris. To get his attention, I wrote him a note telling him I was going to marry him and put a dime in the envelope. You know, to sweeten the pot. My friend and I then proceeded to spend the next few months convincing him to chase us to recess so that I could yell, missed me, now you gotta kiss me." Joke was on me, he did kiss me once, and I was stunned speechless. I never spoke to him again for the rest of the year. Story 29. Back in primary school, 6th grade, I was a boy of about 11 or 12. I had a massive crush on this cute girl. Let's call her Jay.
It was 1993. Well, for years I'd been secretly in love with her, but that day I decided to declare myself. I wrote a letter about me and her walking down the street holding hands, looking each other in the eyes and sharing thoughts and a rainbow of feelings, blah, blah, blah. It was really cheesy. I wrote it using a fountain pen and my best calligraphy, which was really good, I have to say, and a piece of scented paper I bought at my local stationery. I spent almost all my monthly allowance in those articles, so imagine how deep in love I was with that girl. Well, I asked one of my friends to give her the letter, which I put inside an overly decorated envelope, but without telling her who wrote it. What did he do? He went straight to her, giving the damn letter and pointing right down at me. At this point, I lose my crap and hide under my table as a small child would do. To further my embarrassment, she decided to read the letter along with her friends. They started laughing out loud and I had to flee to the bathroom to cry alone. I said this before and I'll say it again. Kids are savages, bro. Story 30. I've repressed this memory as far as it will go, and it wasn't brought up until I read this thread. Thanks, Reddit. So I'm 11 years old, 6th grade, and I have a huge crush on this guy. My younger brother, I think he was 6 at the time, decided to blurt it out one day when we were both picking our siblings up from school. My immediate reaction is, I don't. He's a liar. And laugh it off as I drag my brother away. The end, right? Nope. Stupid 11-year-old me decided I should double down on this by writing him a letter. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was like, don't listen to anything my brother says. He's a liar. Except the liking you part. That's true. I was too scared to give it to him, so I gave it to my friend to be the messenger. The end? Oh no. My friend gave it to him in front of his friends and read it out loud. They passed me in the hall and say, he's a liar, but I like you. I basically passed away in 6th grade and rose from the depths of hell the next year. Story 31. So back when I was in high school, I was this little wannabe punk kid and had a crush on this guy who was the lead singer of a decently popular local band. That was so socially awkward I could never even approach him at a show, let alone try to flirt. Not to mention I was a wildly unpopular, awkward girl. No chance. Fast forward nearly a decade. It's the summer of 2018. I just moved back to my hometown after a few years of living far away. I'm slightly less awkward and have had my late blooming. I find myself lonely, so I decide to see what the local Tinder scene has to offer. Imagine my surprise when I see that musician's face pop up. I swipe right. It's a match, which means that he swiped first. Nice. My opening line? Something along the lines of, my teenage self would be having a fangirl heart attack right now. I mean, it worked. We hooked up a few times. It was fantastic. Ended up in an actual relationship with someone else, though, and so I had to cut things off with him. We're still friends, so I'd say I came out ahead, but I still cringe really hard at how I broke the ice with him. Story 32. When I was in the 1st grade, I took the bus to school. In my neighborhood, there were several stops pretty much all a block away from each other on the same street. My crush lived near the stop right before mine. One day, I got out at her stop, not even to talk to her, but just to kind of maybe walk near her. Before I even got off the bus, some other kid in my class called me out. Hey, this isn't your stop. Your stop is the next stop. Then the next day and forever, I got off at my regular stop. Story 33. In elementary school, my neighbors and I dug out a series of trenches in the woods that we play in. My older brother had some friends over whom I was eager to impress, so as we went to show them our forts, I decided to run ahead and leap into the nearest one to demonstrate that I was super cool and adventurous. Obviously, this plan would have totally worked wonders and made them all fall in love with me. Except it had poured down the night before, and what I jumped into was actually a 5 to 6 foot deep pit of water and mud. To make matters worse, I couldn't get out because it was so slippery. Once they stopped laughing, they pulled me out and I bolted home, coughing, crying, and slimy. Story 34. I was just 14. He was a family friend and had broken his arm. My mom said I should take him some books to read while he was healing. I wrote a tiny, matchbox-sized note saying, Hi, Matthew. I hope you like the books. I really like you. And hid it in one of the books. Never heard anything from him. No idea if he read it or not. When I got my books back, I madly flipped through them, but I couldn't find the note. Fast forward a year and a half, and I lent some books to my best friend. She actually reads them and is like, L? What is this? Brandishing the note. Cue me wanting to pass away. I was mortified. She has never let me live it down. Story 35. When I was in 7th grade, there was a girl me and my friends all thought was the most beautiful at the school. One night, 2 of my friends stayed over at my house. We ended up discussing how incredible this girl is and what if anything we can do to make her attracted to us. Hard to fathom, but we collectively decide to call her and sing to her. Our choice, A Whole New World from Aladdin. I know. So we 3 pubescent boys gather our courage as the phone rings. The call goes to voicemail. We belt out our most seductive attempt at the song. The worst part is, this was before we all had cell phones, so yeah, it was on our family's answering machine. She never said a word to us about it. I scarcely remember the embarrassment being around her after that because I have suppressed the heck out of this memory. In fact, I may have even convinced myself that it didn't happen in 8th grade. That would just be too much to bear. Story 36. Back in the 90s, I purchased a set of magnetic poetry that contained some blank magnets and a sheet of rub-on decal letters so you could make some customized words. Of course, I make tiles for my crush's first, middle, and last name, and also Goo Goo Dolls slide, because I convinced myself it was our song. I then created a super cringy poem that I've completely blocked out of my head. I just know it was about how cool he was and that it most likely rhymed and was edgy. During some class activity, when we were out of our desks, I stealthily laid out the poem on his desk. Once we were instructed to sit back down, I panicked and was like, I need to take it back. But I couldn't get to his desk in time. He saw and immediately knew it was me. He handled it really well, considering he was totally straight and cool, where I was in a closet gay and nerdy. Story 37. I used to be really into Teen Titans. Like, I would watch it every day. So there was this girl I liked going to homecoming dance. I'd never gone to a dance before, and none of my friends ever wanted to go to them. So I went on my own, dressed in what I thought was my coolest outfit at the time. I had a shirt with a tiger on it and some cargo pants, because that just looked so badass. I'm leaning up against the wall of this small little cafeteria where the dance was taking place, and I just drank soda for an hour, trying to look just so cool. I was looking in the direction of my crush the entire time. I guess she and her friends got talking, so they came over to me. I was playing Chain of Memories on my Game Boy SP at this point, and I didn't notice she had made her way over. When I did, I kind of just froze. She broke the ice by asking if I wanted to dance. She asked me to dance. Mission accomplished, right? Nah. Call me Titanic because this is where I go under. You remember how I like Teen Titans, right? Well, I thought Robin was the coolest and wanted to be him. So when she asked me to dance, I quoted him verbatim by saying, I don't dance. My best impression of him. Clearly wanting to give me another shot, bless her heart, the girl asked me why I don't dance. This is when I literally look away from her and give a 1,000-yard stare. I think I'm nailing it at this point. I then quoted Robin again and said, tried it once, didn't like it. This girl and her friends gave me the worst look you could imagine before walking away from me. I was positive I looked awesome. She literally danced to the next guy that talked to her. And I feel like a black hole was formed in my chest. You had a chance that all of us nerds dreamed of as a child, and you blew it. You blew it. Story 38. Not exactly the same thing, but this brought back cringe-inducing memories. I went to a middle or high school dance alone and met this beautiful girl a year below me. We hit it off and danced all night until her parents picked her up. The next day at school, I was psyching myself up to find her and talk to her again, so I played a game. God, if I see her in the next 5 seconds, it's not meant to be. Otherwise, we'll be together forever. Or something equally cringe. 5, 4, 3, 2. Of course, just then, she turned the corner. My eyes grew huge. I was so shocked, and I just ducked my head and hurried past her. She ducked her head and hurried past too. Every time we saw each other in the hallway after that, we would duck our heads and hurry past me with butterflies in my stomach. Story 39. In 5th grade, I wrote a love note poem to my crush and cut it into the shape of a heart, and literally did stipple shading on the heart with a red pen to make it sort of shade or fade onto the words of the strongest value in the edges of the heart. Then I cut it into a puzzle, put it into an envelope, and gave it to my good guy friend. Our moms were best friends. It was in the same 6th grade class as my crush, entrusting him to deliver it secretly to my crush. My guy friend had the envelope half hanging out of her little elementary desks with open storage underneath, and the witch of a teacher snatched it up and asked whose it was. No one answered since I wasn't even in their same grade, let alone class. So she put the puzzle together, graded it for my bad grammar and using a lot instead of a lot, and displayed it outside her classroom door for everyone to see until someone confessed. I didn't write my name on it, but walking by it every day with my class, we had to walk in lines, gave me freaking anxiety attacks, and the boy I had a crush on never had a clue. It was totally aloof and goofy, and to this day is a bit immature, even in our 30s. I cringe that I put in that much effort just to be humiliated by an evil teacher, and all for nothing. No appreciation of my ink stipple, effort, or overall creativity. Thanks, Janice. I never forgave you. Story 40. Oh man, so many. I was, and still am, Lord of the Tryhards. The two that come to mind. When I was in 3rd grade, I was the new kid, and I learned that I could play up the fact that I had left my friends and girlfriend behind for attention from other girls. We went on a field trip to Williamsburg, VA, and I bought a small silver necklace in the shape of a feather, and intentionally, I looked really sad and rushed past the cutest girl and shoved it into her hands and said something like, I don't even know what to do with this. I can't even give it to a girlfriend anymore. Hoping that would cinch my emotionally tortured and interesting act. It did not. That girl went on to be very nice and pretty, and I went on to be very fat and not pretty. Another time, my family was at the beach in Ocean Isle, NC, and I was like,
12. My older, cooler, 16-year-old cousin was trying to teach me how to talk to girls. She spotted some maybe 14-year-olds sitting on their porch that was like 40 feet in the air since it's on stilts. I'm on the ground and he encourages me to talk to them to get a taste of just diving in. We made some small talk and it doesn't go anywhere, so he tactfully has us retreat. I probably went back like 4 times, trying to strike up conversation while he begged me to chill. The first girl who ever reciprocated affection for me when I was like 16 regretted horribly. This was like 2003 at the height of emo, which she was into the aesthetic and I was not. We had built our budding romance on the idea that we were both messed up souls with unhappy home lives, and she had said stuff to make me feel like I was the only one she could talk to about stuff, etc. What she didn't know is that I had real emotional support issues, and while it was a romantic game to her, I was leaning on her very hard to fill a void in my 16-year-old life due to some legitimate family issues. We talked often. I had a lot on AIM and on the phone. One day she didn't answer her phone, and I called back a few times, and I got worried and called back more. In my head, I was committing to the act, showing my concern for her. It became kind of a blur, but a couple hours later, I'd called like 30 times. She called me back, really worried, and creeped that way because of how much I'd been calling her. We sort of awkwardly agreed it was best we didn't really pursue things anymore. I have so many more. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.